Alright, we are live. Welcome to Humane Mind Live, episode 105, Impeachment UXOs. So, maybe that acronym doesn't sound familiar to you, but it's used a lot in the military. Stands for Unexploded Ordinances. Alright, I'll get into that in a second, but first, so I only have three things that we're going to talk about today, and then my brother mentioned that maybe we'll talk about the Communist Manifesto here at the end. I guess depends on how long these other stories take. I plan on. I was looking at it. I'm like, man, I only have enough for maybe 45 minutes of stuff. But as these streams have played out, usually it means it'll take like an hour and a half, and then maybe we can get to the Communist Manifesto at the end. If I end up adding that at the end, I will change the notes to reflect that. And I need to pause that so I'm not seeing an echo of myself on the stream itself. But as you can see, I've got Fuentes pulled up again because we talked about him 2 weeks ago and did not have a stream last week. Both me and my brother were occupied otherwise. But this is something I found recently from him, and I wish I had included it in the previous video because, wow, I cannot believe this exists and it's on his highlight channel as something highlight worthy. Oh wait, I did not check to see if I could cast to, boom, weekly stream. All right. So, I can cast it there, and I'm gonna start playing this. So, I didn't link you the, well, the links are in the,
I can see the cast, so this works.
Yeah, I was about to say all the links to the video stuff is in the notes for the actual the stream itself. If you want to click on them later or whatever, I didn't send them to you in the Hangout.
Yeah, usually that's only if the cast isn't working, but I can see the vid here, so we're good.
All right.
Two mud shark daughters.
Ooh.
I don't know, bro.
All right, let me back this up a little bit.
Glenn says, "What's worse, one gay son or two mud shark daughters?"
All right, if you're not familiar with that term, that is a white woman who has sex with a black man.
Wait, what is a mud shark?
That's what a mud shark is. It's a white person who has sex with somebody who's black. Usually women with men.
So who's the shark? The black guy?
No. The mud shark is a fish that swims in the mud, so it would be the white.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Really? Why?
I don't know, bro. I don't know. Honestly, having a mud shark daughter would just be the ultimate humiliation. But then again, is the gay son, is he a top or a bottom? I mean, frankly, at this point, it does matter for this equation.
What? You know? Why?
Because I don't know. It's tough to say. It's tough to say. Neither situation is very enviable. And by the way, disavow the use of the word mud shark. The phrase mud shark is very offensive. But I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want either of them. But I don't know. I mean, I guess with the gay son, the trick is that, I mean, basically, you're just kind of stuck with that, you know? Scoffy says every time.
Yeah, and I was like, wait, like, part of it, you know, he makes a face like he's just joking about it. I'm like, dude, what kind of response is that? Where he's actually like, oh, this is a tough one. I've never.
Yeah, well, I mean,
dude.
just the term. Okay, so now I'm getting things into context. What an actual mud shark is? Why? That's extremely derogatory. I mean, you might as well just be shouting out the N-word to every black guy you see.
Yeah.
What? At what point is it okay, or do we just consider that we are all human?
Well, these people obviously don't see that, and granted, the question asker may have been asking a joke sort of thing, and because I mean, there's people who call into Beauty in the Beta and they make references to stupid stuff, and it's like, yeah, this is internet culture and trolling and all that sort of thing. but my is more of his reaction to it is like,
I
oh,
don't
this
think
is a
he's
hard
trolling.
one, really. A son who is gay or daughters who have sex with black men. Oh, that sounds equally terrible. What?
It
In
would
what
just
world is that
appear,
equally terrible?
it would appear to me watching this clip, he does not anticipate that. I don't think he has children, but when he
Oh no,
does
he
have
doesn't.
children,
He's
that he would
dude.
not expect that
No, that's the other thing is
compared
he
with his
he
offspring.
is a basement dweller. He is the prime millennial. He's admitted that on these streams. He lives in his parents' basement. He's like, oh, what's wrong with that? It's expensive out there, and I'm like, oh, oh.
Okay, so two different topics here. One is just a racial topic. At any point, would it be considered okay for a black man to have a white girl as his, his partner or fiance or wife or whatever, and vice versa, a black woman to have a white guy? I would
But
think we have already been there like decades ago.
yeah, that happened years
I
ago.
thought
Like,
it was over. I thought
like
nobody cared, and it
yeah, this is 60s and 70s. People still had a problem with this. 80s and 90s, no, it's not a thing anymore.
then we grew up in kind of a hardcore church, and even in then, they interracial relationships. Everyone's like, well, as long as you're Christian.
Yeah,
Just
you'd
that was
find rare instances of people who have that, but this guy's one of them. And a lot of the people who call in or write into the, and they're sending this guy super chats, and that's the annoying.
yeah.
Well,
Well, I mean, I've never heard that term much. Art.
yeah, that's
Why? What's the point?
it is very it's one of those
Yeah,
terms thrown around a lot on the Daily Stormer, and like I was saying, all of
he's
these kids,
determining that black people are beneath him.
yeah,
And
he's
that's the only reason you would ever use a term like that.
yeah,
The definition of racism is your race is superior to another's.
yeah.
So
Yeah. So this entire clip, I was like, man, that is like, how can anybody follow this guy? And but the thing is a lot of the people who follow this guy, and a lot of people asking questions at these events for him and stuff like that, they're people who are on the Daily Stormer. These are the same people who chanted "Blood and Soil" at their Unite the Right rally. They have not changed. They just changed the name and then pretend to be something else. It's the same group. I've been interacting. The more and more I interact with these people, the more like, yeah, you're the same people. you put on a different name and you pretend to be something else, but no, you're the exact same guys.
Yep. But in his other comment, and this is aside from race, having a gay son,
like
I
that's
don't really
something I would be
agree
like,
with
yeah,
that lifestyle. That's we've already stated multiple times on various streams. However, that would be my son.
yeah,
I cannot imagine not loving my son, regardless of what he's done, unless he, tried to kill me and everybody else in my family for whatever reason. He just grew up a psychopath.
yeah,
But that's not happening.
yeah. So I would see that as a
Seems
painful mistake that the child is making, and you're like, I know that's not right with God, and you're not living your life the best that you can, but it's not like disown them and throw them out on the street and don't associate with them. No, it's
this comes along the same lines of, say, Chris, or not Chris Rock. What's little comedian
Kevin
dude's
Hart.
name? Kevin Hart. Yeah. Kevin Hart, right? And he was
Yeah.
supposed to host the Oscars, and then
Yeah.
he found out like 10 years previous he said something about smashing a dollhouse on his son.
Yeah, and Dave Chappelle mentioned that. It's like, do you understand? For this joke, he bought
go
his
out
son a
buy a
dollhouse.
Yeah. Obviously, it's ludicrous. He's basically just emphasizing or making an extreme parody of, I hope my son is hetero, since the majority of the population is hetero, and that's going to make his life easier.
Mhm.
And I'll do what I can to enforce it. That's the same thing that most parents think. Well, unless you're a progressive and you think, I need to show how progressive I am.
And it's like, oh, my son is straight. Oh, that's terrible. How dare he? He needs to be trans or something so I can get virtue points.
What's her mom out in Texas?
Yeah, the James Younger was the last name, I think.
Yeah, I think it's Younger.
Yeah.
Right, there's twins, and one was straight, and one ended up the mom said they were a girl because at one point they picked a girl toy at McDonald's or Burger King or something.
It's because the Teen Titans. There's a character named Starfire. Is a girl, an alien, can fly, shoots beams and stuff like that. The boy said he wanted to be her as opposed to Robin. And if you've ever watched Teen Titans,
Robin's like the weakest out of even.
Robin sucks. Robin doesn't have any powers. The other people are cool. If you're going to pick one of the Teen Titans, you don't pick Robin. You don't pick Cyborg. You might pick Beast Boy, but Cyborg doesn't really have any powers, and Beast Boy's powers are kind of lame. The other ones have, like, cool powers.
Is when I was growing up, we had, what was her name? Rainbow Bright?
Yeah.
And, like, these little puffy whatever critters that surrounded her, but she was the main heroine of that series, trying to fight against bad guys and ill will and whatnot. And I remember watching that cartoon series, and that was the person that I wanted to be. Not because I wanted to be a girl, it's just because that was the hero. That was the winner.
Yeah, that was the cool. They had cool powers that you liked, and you're like, yeah, I want to be like that. That's all James Younger was doing. And then his mom. Well, the other thing that his mom is
what's that Kansas City? It's not Six Flags. It's World of Fun.
Yeah, World of Fun.
We had a Rainbow Bright stage thing.
Yeah, we got like video of either you or Nate on stage.
Walked up and gave her a hug, and it's like, dude, this is the best day ever.
Yeah.
But it's just that's a character on a cartoon.
Yeah.
It's not who you want to be. At no point ever in my life did I want to be Rainbow Bright.
Had that occurred, within the last 10 years or so, and had our parents been wacko leftists, they would have been putting you in a dress and be like, oh, yep, he's a girl.
I would have probably been raised trans or bi or something in the LGBT just because.
Yeah, the other thing is that the mother in that case, she's a trans advocate, and she's been using that to advertise for her practice as a psychologist. She's been posting pictures of her child and say, "Oh, my child's trans, and so I can help you guys with trans issues." And that it's like, wow, that
makes no sense.
Yeah,
it's my father was a welder, so I'm good at welding. My mother was good as a whatever her job was, a seamstress or a secretary or a doctor or whatever. So therefore, I've inherited her doctor genes, and now I'm a doctor. No. Yeah. What does any of your familiar relationship have to do with you personally? Absolutely nothing.
No, but it seems definitely that she's using her son to promote her business and get more clients for her, and it's very manipulative on her part.
Correct. However, I'm under the assumption that the vast majority of the American population is still hetero. And if they had a non-hetero child, they would do what they could to say, is this just a phase? Is this something you're just kind of going through? Is this a legitimate and that's all you're attracted to? And if they found out, hey, my son or daughter happens to be just simply gay, I don't think they're going to disown their children. They're just going to accept it and say, it is what it is. I still love my son and daughter.
Yeah.
I don't understand his mentality.
Nope. And I like these clips were very easy to find, and he's like this is not stuff I had to dive deep into, but people, like, there's a lot of people who are just, oh no, these guys aren't, they mention his name every time they're asking questions. Oh, but they're just concerned about America. They're just concerned about, they think conservatives aren't doing enough. And I'm like, this is their role model, this guy right here. And it's like,
it just seems like you're just trying to latch on to the closest person that maybe your beliefs or ideology is associated with. I mean, I've gone in a lot of Discord chats and even brought up Ben Shapiro, and everyone's like, oh, that fascist neocon, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not really hearing it. I understand he's pro-Israel because he's Jewish. I get that. But as far as the fascist and the neocon part, I'm not hearing it. And yet that's what everybody considers him.
Yeah.
If they have more left, he's a fascist neocon.
That's the thing, is these guys are also calling Ben Shapiro and Turning Point USA neocons, and I'm like, whoa, wait. The rhinos, the old school Republicans that fought Trump every step of the way, those are neocons.
The never Trumpers
The
who
never
said
Trumpers, John Bolton, yeah, there are a whole host of people who were Republicans who, under the Bush administration, who have been actively fighting Trump and who have been undermining his agency by leaking information out, and they've been encouraging wars and things along those lines. Those are the neocons.
Yeah.
This new generation who is pushing back to the roots of conservatives, those aren't neocons. Those are the regular conservatives taking back the reins from all the people who are Republicans in name only.
Instead of saying, let's make it, instead of being political, they're saying this is the lifestyle. This is what we believe. Yeah. Just because you're Republican doesn't mean you're conservative, and just because you're Democrat doesn't mean you're necessarily left-leaning. Those terms have seemed to gone.
Yeah.
They no longer equate. There are many liberals or centrists now. They used to be just called Democrats, but now they're centrists because the left has gone way left. But that calling them Democrats doesn't mean they necessarily agree with, Pocahontas or anybody else over on that stage. They stick with just general Democrat ideologies, and that seems to be geared towards more central. I mean, just your centralist Republicans or conservatives, your centralist Democrats, they still stand within this kind of tight window and say, no, this is the U.S. We may not necessarily agree on social platforms or on welfare net and, providing for the needy and where the money should be spent, but this is our idea of the U.S., and that's still, I think, a good portion of the United States.
Yeah, and the United States, so the Tea Party rose up against the neocons, and people like the guys at Turning Point USA and the guys at the Daily Wire are part of that Tea Party group. They rose up in a opposition to the neocons, and yes, Ben Shapiro has had some takes that have been neocon-ish.
The only reason,
but he's acknowledged those mistakes and like, oh, yeah,
Jewish, and if you are Jewish, Israel is considered the Holy Land, and therefore it needs to be protected. It is just part of the ideology if you're going to be an actual Jewish practitioner, someone who believes in the Jewish religion.
But he's gone on record talking about this group in particular, and he's like, yes, if there was a policy that would benefit the U.S. and it would undermine Israel or hurt Israel, sorry, Israel, I'm backing the U.S. I'm like, that's exactly the opposite of what they'd claim he would say. So, now if they can find proof that he was lying there, they'd have a leg to stand on. But there is no proof that he was lying there. You would have to find him saying something, behind closed doors, like he says one thing publicly and says another thing privately, or find something he's written that completely goes against what he said, and something that he's written recently. I've seen people like Cassandra Fairbanks link to an article he wrote back in 2003 and be like, oh, see, Ben Shapiro is a warmonger, he wanted war with, and I'm like, that's 16 years ago.
That's 3 years after 9/11.
Yeah, this is October 24 of this year. Cassandra, you're backing Fuentes. What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
I'm like, Ben Shapiro supported war. Yeah, he supported a war at the same time everyone supported the war.
The entire country did. We just got bombed 3 years earlier.
Yeah.
2 towers knocked down from airplanes.
Everyone was being told. Yeah.
Terrorism in the Middle East. Yeah. That was the entire country behind that.
And everyone was told that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and was planning on using them. It was like, yeah, we found out years later that all of that was BS. Like, there were people who were suspicious, there were people who would, but it wasn't proven until after Bush was out of office that, oh yeah, by the way, there were no weapons of mass destruction. We got into this war. It was all based on lies. Yeah. At that point, you're like, oh, we were duped. We changed tune. Ugh. All right. But time to move on to the next topic. So the next thing is the the impeachments that have been hearings that have been going on, and I know it's really boring, really stupid stuff. Oh man, the 10 hours a day of this.
What a giant waste of time. We just spent 2 years getting over a Russia collusion investigation, and now we're into this garbage.
So everybody who's watched it, who was able to stay awake for the entire time, knows that there's nothing there. But here's what the media have been saying. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you? I think I might have cut you off there. I wasn't sure if you were.
Oh no, I was just coughing. Sorry.
Yeah.
Good. Proceed.
All right.
This is a bombshell,
but it is explosive.
Okay. Very explosive.
This is a slow motion explosion.
I can't emphasize how explosive this is right now.
What we have witnessed today on live television, riveting.
Ambassador Sondland's testimony has such gravity to it.
This was an IED from Mr. Sondland. He exploded.
Yeah. So, I mean, granted, this is a clip from Fox. I just use it because it had that montage of all the other people talking about explosions. And I've got... Oh, man, I switched to it, so it's going to show up on the stream first. But I've got exclusive footage of the actual explosion.
Just an old crapper tank, people.
Oh! Chicken wings! Stop it! Somebody help me! Help me! Is it done? How much is in there? I got the poo on me.
You are so...
That was the best scene in that movie, and that's what popped in my head as soon as there's like explosion, bombs. I'm like, dude, that's...
It's just a mobile septic tank.
Yeah, they thought it was a bomb, and that's it. I guess it's a different type of bomb.
That's pretty accurate. I mean, absolutely nothing has come of this other than it's kind of a he said, she said. Where the main Democrats, the board in that, or I guess Schiff's committee, is trying to prove a certain point, and to a certain aspect, they're kind of hearing whispers of it, and yet then nope, it turns out none of that was real.
Yeah.
No, turns out nah.
Nope.
Even what's her name? The former representative to the UK. I'm gonna have to look up her name. But you could just
what was her name? Something Hill, right?
What Hill? No.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Was that lady with the very unfortunately mannish face?
Yeah.
Thought it was something Hill, but yeah, I know you were talking about. I can't remember the name.
Marie Yovanovitch.
Wow, way off.
Yeah. Essentially, because of the info Trump got, he fired her, and now she's a bit jaded and has just been saying, well, I wish Trump had done this because then he'd get his ass handed to him. But no, I have no evidence of anything. And that's it.
Yeah. So,
and I'm hearing all this bombshell stuff from her. I'm like, no. None of that. It's just wishful thinking from people who don't like Trump.
Yeah. So here's another little montage of clips that came out of the impeachment hearings.
I don't recall President Trump ever talking to me about any security assistance, ever.
Did the president ever tell you personally about any preconditions for anything?
No.
Okay, so the president never told you about any preconditions for the aid to be released?
No.
Is it correct no one on this planet told you that Donald Trump was tying this aid to the investigations? Because if your answer is yes, then the chairman's wrong and the headline on CNN is wrong. No one on this planet told you that President Trump was tying aid to investigations. Yes or no?
Yes.
You called President Trump to ask him, what do you want from Ukraine? He responded, I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. I want Zelensky to do the right thing. I want him to do what he ran on, and what he ran on was fighting corruption, correct?
Correct.
President said, quote, no quid pro quo. I want nothing. I want nothing. I want President Zelensky to do the right thing, do what he ran on, end quote. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That means it's all over.
And one of the other clips of Sondland, he was saying, when he was answering some of the questions, they were asking him, so nobody told you quid pro quo, you were just, and he was like, yeah, that was my presumption. And the other guy is like, yeah, that means nothing. You can presume that all you want.
It's the same thing that the DNC is presuming. The same thing that Adam Schiff is presuming.
Yeah.
However, if there are no facts, there's nobody stating, yes, this is exactly as you have presumed, then they have nothing. In fact, they've got quotes of Trump saying, no, there is none of that. I just want this Ukraine president to do what he stood for, and let's fight corruption.
Yeah.
And that's all they have on the record.
Yeah.
Exactly what everyone got from the transcript weeks ago.
Yep. And the other thing is, everybody's pointing out was like, well, the aid was released. What did Ukraine do to earn that release? Oh, nothing?
Nothing? They didn't even know it was withheld. They got it, and they're like, okay, great.
Yep.
Oh,
thanks.
yeah, we released that late. And they were like, oh, we didn't know.
Yeah. They had no way of knowing it was being held up for anything that they needed to do. Also, they didn't do anything, and the aid was released, so...
But, I mean, so... Let's look at this from two perspectives, right? Yes, you could say Trump was withholding funds in order to get a quid pro quo from the Ukraine president, just like Joe Biden did 3 years ago, right?
In which case...
However... Yeah. They just got a new president like 2 months prior.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And his entire platform was weeding out corruption. And it would kind of make sense. I don't think we should pay a country of which they just upheaved their entire their rule, because not only was it the presidency, but shortly after their entire parliament, basically the entire staff underneath the president of Ukraine was ousted, and all new people were put in. This is an entirely new government. Yeah, maybe we should wait and see who we're paying, because these are new people.
And part of that, so the
this all happened this year.
The lead prosecutor,
Trump just used it. It all happened right before he made that phone call.
Yeah,
like months before then.
And if you so Joe Biden was bragging about getting the lead prosecutor fired and claims, oh, he was corrupt and he's. And I think I mentioned this before. He got kicked out. They got their $1 billion. Then, no charges were against that prosecutor. Nothing done. He actually got a letter of praise from the administration after they let him go. He's got people testifying on his behalf that he was not corrupt. There was no corruption in what he was doing. The guy he was replaced with, who dropped the case against Burisma, is under investigation. He was one of the people who was kicked out during the changeover.
The former president even had statements where he said they weren't corrupt. He just wasn't complying with their cease and desist order.
Yeah.
He said because he couldn't let Burisma go.
Yeah, and Burisma is back under investigation now.
Instructed to stop investigation on Burisma.
Yeah, so Burisma is under investigation currently.
My job.
The prosecutor who dropped the case against Burisma is under investigation.
Yeah.
One of their primary CEOs fled the country. Just like, dude, what the...
And at least 3 of their board members are from the U.S.
Yeah.
One former CIA, one Joe Biden's son, which everyone's scratching their head like, what the hell is that guy doing here?
Yeah.
Cocaine head dropout? Why is he earning millions of dollars sitting on this board?
Oh, because he's providing valuable legal aid. What?
I mean, he's never actually stated how he got that job or why he was there.
Oh, no, he did. He did in an interview. Somebody, yeah, the interview, they asked him, do you think you would have gotten...
He's a bad idea now that in retrospect.
No, but he was asked, do you think you would have gotten the job if your last name wasn't Biden? And he said, no, I don't think so.
Oh, yeah. So
dude, that's... Oh, it is ridiculous.
I don't know if it's just maybe the Bidens aren't necessarily corrupt. It's just that Joe and his son are complete freaking idiots.
It's possible, and right, that's the
because
Hanlon's razor, right? Never attribute to malice what can be explained through ignorance.
I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe that's why Joe and his son are sitting there saying, "What's going wrong?" And yet they've been manipulated the entire time.
Yeah,
There's
a possibility of that, but
which was in fact a quid pro quo, stating we're not going to give you this billion unless you do this for us.
Yeah, but
exactly what we're trying to nail Trump on, he did, but he was pressured because he was informed, hey, this, we've got this attorney here in the Ukraine that's corrupt, and he's going after your son, and he's going after this company, and we need to end it. So yeah, I can see if people are feeding that into his ear, he's stupid enough to say, okay, yep, then I'm going to do what I can, and I'm under Obama, I'm protected.
But in the U.S.,
I got the job, they offered it. I didn't.
Yeah, in the U.S., even being stupid and not realizing you're doing something as a crime is still something you can be punished for if it's reasonable that you should have assumed something was up.
Yeah.
So there is mens rea, which means you have to
what's her name? Sick lady, Paris Hilton.
Yeah.
Was only famous just because of the last name.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with her. Turns out she's just bleh.
Mm-hmm.
Not really that attractive. Not really that entertaining. Nothing. Just bleh.
Mm-hmm.
But her last name happened to be Hilton, so she got a whole TV show.
Yep.
It happens. So
Kardashians too. Their entire
the Bidens are the mafia, but I think they're just so gullible. Yeah. They fell right into it and said, well, sounds good to me.
So it's either the case that they're so stupid they felt like they just did these things and not realize, like, dude, what? How did you just do these things without thinking it through? Or they are corrupt. Either way, it's not good.
Country, and your son is on the board of the richest corporation in that country. You gotta step back and say, maybe there is maybe I do need to step back or need to make this of note because there could be a conflict of interest here.
Yeah, I was just saying, I keep forgetting that my whatever is on the window is what's displaying on the screen, not just what's in the Hangout. So I keep preempting what I've got queued up. But oh well. My bad. Sorry for making you break your train of thought there.
Oh no, that was the end of the statement.
Oh, okay. So there's more on the impeachment inquiry, and there is this. I should actually pull this out to a new window, but whatever. I'm just gonna keep doing it. So here's the Ambassador Taylor's answers to questions in Congress.
My best friend's sister's boyfriend's brother's girlfriend heard from this guy who knows this kid is going with the girl who saw Ferris pass out at 31 Flavors last night. Guess it's pretty serious.
Thank you, Simone.
No problem.
That's a pretty good summation. I was like, man, that's... And then Christy Swanson is the girl in the clip from Ferris Bueller. And she's actually pretty conservative as well. She was... they did a stage play with her and Dean Cain where they read the text messages back and forth between what's his name, the FBI people, Schultz, no, what's his name, it's a weird name, right? Struck, yeah Struck and Page. So they did a stage play where they read those messages back and forth. It was pretty funny. But yeah, that's it's a pretty amazing how that clip kind of syncs up here. And this was tweeted out by Representative Doug Collins, who was part of the impeachment inquiry. And this is
so representatives, and I remember growing up in my younger years, they just seem to be these old stern white dudes.
Yeah. And
as of late, you got funny stuff like this. You've got the previous representative who spelled out within
wait, don't give that away yet. That's the next thing.
And then we got the representative from Utah, and he had what was it, Reagan riding on a rat?
Riding on a dinosaur with machine guns.
Talking about the Green New Deal. And I'm wondering, is it not that the right is better at memeing? It's just, it is so absurd that you can't help but everybody becomes a jokester.
Yeah,
things have become so abstract and so just comedic that simply pointing it out and all of a sudden you're memeing and you're a jokester.
Yeah, well, it's the sense that they're smart enough to realize, oh, this is a joke, this is silly, let's just laugh at it. But the Democrats are taking everything seriously, and it's like, oh, how can you joke about this? This is not a joking matter. And it's like, dude, this is not. There's nothing here. It's not serious. You guys are clowns. That's.
Well, I mean, it's the whole aspect of remember that ma'am video where that dude went and trashed the GameStop store?
Yeah.
Would anybody in real life consider that a ma'am? Hell no. I mean, dude's like a foot taller than me.
Yeah.
Obviously a bit more fat, and it's just like, I don't care what you call yourself, you're a freaking dude.
Yeah, and the internet gave him the nickname Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Macho Man. I mean, in real life, anybody looking at this situation would be like, no, you're just a dude with tight jeans and pink shoes and a pink jacket.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how you cut your hair, you're a freaking dude. You're bigger than most dudes. Just, it is what it is. What are you yelling about?
All right. And you started to mention something here, and I'm just gonna get to it because so this was it didn't queue up to the place I had it. Let me see. It's gonna be a little bit scrolling down because this was at the top of his tweets earlier. How far down is this? Yeah, this is. Where did that start? Okay, here's where it starts on November 13th. Evidence of a link between foreign aid and political investigation simply does not exist. The longer the circus continues, the clearer it becomes that real Donald Trump has done absolutely nothing wrong. President real Donald Trump voluntarily chose to release a transcript of his phone call, which clearly shows he did nothing wrong. The impeachment circus is a total sham, and Adam Schiff is a clown at the center of it all. And it just continues like this, with tweets that all relate to the current impeachment hearing. And somebody noted that the first letter of every tweet spells out, Epstein didn't kill himself.
Yeah.
And it's, once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like, dude, that is amazing. Because...
Well, scroll up to the very first post.
Yeah.
If anybody's watching, he's scrolling, but just to prove a point.
Yeah, so here's the first one where it starts.
EPSTEIN. So that's definitely Epstein. DID. So, yeah. It spells out Epstein didn't kill himself.
Didn't. KILLHIMSELF.
It is there.
Yeah, it's there, and it's all stuff related to the impeachment hearing, and it shows, even though this guy is one of the guys who's been asking questions, and like during the actual proceedings, they're taking it seriously. They're not joking, and they're like, this is. And actually, Jim Jordan has been really, really good at grilling people and getting to the to the facts of the case.
He's a pretty sharp dude.
Yeah,
He was just very antsy to finally get in there because I know when doors, he was kind of circling around like, I'm just waiting for one tiny crack.
Yeah, I can tell he was probably a really good lawyer before he became a member of Congress. But then when people noticed this, he sent out this one. All the tweets pertaining to today's hearing, rest assured they are substantive. Every one of them, all of them, 5 were brilliant, one was okay. Dude, that is, That's really good, and he's not like a young guy or whatever. To see them kind of participating in all of this is pretty good.
To anybody who just is of a normal understanding.
Yeah.
When you look at Epstein's death, yeah, something seems really freaking fishy. I mean,
dude, yeah.
Absurdly fishy, especially with who you had ties to, and now, you know, they had 2 rookie guards who weren't actual guards and who both fell asleep for about 3 hours.
They weren't normal guards. They were also doing extended shifts for long, like, back to back, and you're like, what? That's not normal.
That was one circumstance. I understand that, but you have a high-profile prisoner like Epstein. Do not assign these type of guys to that kind of prisoner.
Yeah, and you don't give them extended shifts and put them back to back, and you also the cameras malfunction.
Both guards fell asleep.
Yep.
Really. I mean, you're just so many things that do not add up.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. And then when you look at the Trump Inquisition, we'll just call it. I mean, that's what I'll call it. About I don't even think it's necessarily about Ukraine anymore. I don't even know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
They're just looking for anything they can possibly say. Is this impeachable? Is this? What about this? What about this?
Yeah, the funny thing, well, I guess the other thing we didn't quite mention here is right now they're trying to prove Trump might be guilty, and they're like, oh, well, he possibly did this. We don't have any hard evidence. And there's video clip of Joe bragging about this, so it's kind of like okay, you might be able to slap Trump's hand on this slightly. If you do that, Joe Biden is that's the end of Joe Biden. He's like a slap on the wrist for Trump is going to be a jail sentence for Biden over this.
So here's the bad thing. How is Adam Schiff in the position he's in? Because
I have no
that
idea.
dude is as partisan as it gets. I mean, that dude is a disgusting. I
don't know.
I don't even know what's wrong with that guy. It seems like everybody who comes from California does not have a grasp on reality or the rest of the country. They're off in their own freaking la land. And unfortunately, Pelosi, I didn't agree with her, but I thought at least she's trying to hold the party to their party lines, the original party lines, up until about a month ago, and then she snapped. The weight finally crushed her.
Yeah, and she finally gave up, and
they're falling out, and she's just spitting out the regular, mainstream, newsworthy Democratic talking points. But before that, she was severely against impeachment procedures because she understood this is only going to hurt us. We're actually doing zero damage to the Republican side. This is only hurting us. That's it.
Yeah, and
that's it.
Well, the other thing that they claim about this is, he's just investigating Biden, so because he wants to torpedo Biden's presidential campaign. Biden's doing that all by himself.
I mean, man, with the bursting eyeball and him mumbling his way through every debate, and people are wondering, did you just negate yourself? What did you say?
I don't know what he was saying, and he's been answering questions.
So the last
not even a coherent answer.
Now he helped elect the one and only interracial congresswoman while standing next to Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris
eyeballing him like, really?
Yeah, really? That's what you're gonna do as a bragging point? Because if that's a bragging point, elect me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so then she kind of gave him the stink eye for that, and Potato Head or Spartacus brought it up, and he's like, no, that's not really true. And she's sitting there nodding like, yeah, hello, I'm right here.
Yeah, that's...
He's stuck about 30 years ago. Biden has no relevance. The only people voting for him are old people.
Oh, yeah, that's because the person he got elected was her, right? That's who he was bragging about getting her elected.
No, it wasn't her. It was someone else.
Oh.
I guess he forgot she was standing next to him.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, she was the second one? Okay.
Yeah, within the Senate, and then you got the House committee, and now we've already got multiple non-white, I guess, anybody but white House reps.
Yeah, well, Warren has also stated that she was like the first first one who was pregnant or whatever, or something that. And I'm like, nope, not even close by like 60 years or something crazy like that.
You said Warren?
Yeah, Warren. She was bragging about something about being nominated or being elected, and something about pregnancy. I don't remember the exact word. Either she was pregnant at the time, or she had had a kid, or something stupid like that. And you're like, nope. Like back almost in the 1800s. Wait, no. When was the first? Early 1900s. First female, and like, yep, that you're about 60 years too short, or 60 years too late for that.
Spin the garbage on them and say, hey, are you devoting your interest towards a country or towards your own family? You should have had an abortion. Yeah, it's your right, but if you're going to focus on your rights are to focus on the country, be a representative.
Yeah. I don't remember her.
Both at the same time.
Yeah, I don't remember her exact claim, but people were looking at it like, wait, no, there's no way that's true. And they're like, yeah, you're 60 years too late for that. Whatever your claim was, you're 60 years
Everything
behind.
she claims is garbage.
Oh yeah, she also claimed that she got kicked out of her teaching position because she got pregnant. And it's like,
they actually wanted to hire her back, and she left the job. She left. They extended her term.
Yeah, they were like, okay, you don't have the qualifications. We're willing to give you an extension. Go get the qualifications. She's like, nope, I'm out. And then she even said that before in interviews. And now she's like, yeah, well, I was visibly pregnant. That's obviously the reason they let me go. What?
Obviously that she left and decided.
When you were running for Senate, you didn't say that. You had a completely different explanation of what. Yeah. Okay, so, and then going off of the Epstein didn't kill himself thing, Crowder is doing an event tonight, so that's probably should be doing that instead of watching this stream, whatever, but he tweeted out something, and people have been sending Epstein didn't kill himself memes to his account, and this one is really good. I like that. Yeah, I was like, oh, that's a really clever one. Took me a while to get it. I'm like, oh, there it is. You see it?
Oh, okay, yep.
Yeah, it's not the first letter of every, but they line up. So there's a whole stream of those being sent to him right now under the hashtag Epstein didn't kill himself. Yeah, dude, this is something I just found out. Like, somebody sent this one in.
Well, here's the weird thing, right?
They changed the Wikipedia article for an intensely monitoring process. Sure, anyone except Jeffrey Epstein cannot attempt suicide.
Oh no!
They changed it the day later, but it was up there for at least a day.
I mean, so the messed up thing is, right, if the Clintons, and I'm almost wondering if Bill is just kind of the charismatic
the
front man who's just kind of and Hillary has been the behind the scenes person all along.
Probably.
But the Clintons have had more quote unquote suicides and mysterious deaths related to them than pretty much anybody in the entire country. And it is now a known meme over years. You don't want to be suicided by the Clintons. Mm-hmm. This was a known meme.
Yeah. And then this happens, and then he commits suicide?
Oh, he suicided himself by shooting himself twice in the back of the head.
Yeah, that was a meme long before Epstein was in jail. And then
way before. And then this happens in real life, and you could just see it. Like, I could have called that.
Like, there's no way they're actually gonna. There's no way he's gonna die in prison, right? There's no way they're gonna try to play this up, and then they tried to claim a suicide. What?
I mean, it was less than a month.
Yeah.
Who didn't call that? That came to absolutely nobody's surprise.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that seems to be controversial is that Epstein stated, "I don't want to kill myself," like 2 weeks earlier.
Yep.
And that he talked to his former bodyguard, and that he talked to his lawyer, and both of them were like, "No, he didn't say anything about wanting to kill himself. He said he's scared for his life."
Yep. And then
And here, in here, like, nope, it's a suicide, obviously.
Yeah, so the official coroner claimed suicide. The one hired by the lawyer, like, nope, there's definitely evidence of that he did not commit suicide.
That's not for him hanging himself. That's strangulation.
Yeah.
I've heard that guy. He was on Fox and some other news channel.
Yep.
So I've seen him on 2 different news channels, and he's like, we just want to find out the facts, but those broken bones don't happen with the normal hanging. Yep. Even if he hung himself from that low of a height and just kind of like bent his knees and suffocated himself, he would not have bones.
What Crowder is doing, I guess maybe right now or in an hour or so, I don't remember the exact time frame, is they're recreating Epstein's cell, and he is going to attempt to see if he can hang himself. I mean, obviously not to the point where he kills himself, but to see if he can cut off his air successfully, and to the point where, yeah, somebody could do this and commit suicide. And hopefully this won't blow up in his face like the Cuomo thing. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so one of the witnesses during the impeachment inquiry claims that he was sitting across the table from Sondland. Trump called Sondland, and Trump is very loud or whatever, and Sondland pulled the phone away from his ear. He didn't put it on speakerphone, and the guy across the table could overhear the conversation on the phone and was saying that Trump was talking about there was quid pro quo and was demanding that and Sondland denies this, and the Democrats are looking at the guy across the table, and so Cuomo on the show is like, oh, let's test this out. Yeah, and so he got his phone and called his mom and had the phone held up to the lady next to him, is Dana Bash. I was like, Mom, just say something. We'll see if, and they're right next to each other, and the microphone is right next to the phone. And people like four or 2 or 3 people down are like, nope, I can't hear anything. And Cuomo and Dana can't hear anything, and they're holding the phone like this. They're holding it like just inches away from their faces.
What most you're gonna hear is
yeah.
It's inaudible.
Yeah. That's something he should have tried out prior to doing it live on TV and not having it work.
Man, I think after this, all of the actual state workers who are legitimate and just looking out for their jobs are going to turn to all the turncoats and the guys who said, hey, yeah, I've got a statement or I've heard this, and just be like, what the fuck, really? I've been working with you for 10 years, and they're going to stab me in the back like this? I think this is going to turn Washington on its head, is because you do have some dedicated people who are there for the country, but there are those deep states that state, hey, we're in it for this ideology, and we believe it's for the betterment of the country, but it is this ideology. We're not following the laws, we're not following the regulations, and if you break what we believe our ideology is, then you have violated our laws. It seems like the more and more Trump sticks in office, the more this is getting weeded out, and it's very hard to tell if this is just on accident or just because he's just a real dude. I don't know. I mean, sometimes it just seems Trump stumbles into this and manages to get his way out because he didn't actually do anything. I don't know.
So sometimes it's like, oh, that was a brilliant move, that was 4D chess, and other times you hear him talk and you're like, he doesn't have any idea what he's talking about.
Yeah, there's no capacity for 4D chess. I don't even think he plays regular chess. What's going on?
Yeah, and you're like, he's repeating something he heard on Fox, and he's repeating it very like halfway and stumbling over. And you're like, yeah, I don't really. And you're like, nope, that's not. I mean, I get what you're saying, but that's you have no idea what you're talking about. And so it's things like that that are kind of like. So for me, it seems. I think he does these things by instinct. Like, he's been doing this sort of stuff, or these sort of things so long, they're kind of like second nature and habit, and he does them without realizing it. That's kind of idiot savant-ish.
He's been in business for decades.
Yeah.
This is just the way he is. I mean, if you just listen to his rhetoric, when he comes out with comments like, it was a perfect phone call. Whoever says that? Ever?
No.
What the hell is a perfect phone call? I don't know what that is.
But then he'll just double down and keep repeating it, and then like, oh no, it wasn't perfect, and then they'll go and investigate, and like, well, there's nothing here, but it wasn't perfect.
This context, perfect is not objective; it is subjective. But what you guys have found out is that people were spying on him.
Yeah,
that's all we found out.
Oh yeah, and the other thing that came out about this is somebody who turned in the paperwork that started the FISA warrant. One of the lawyers involved with submitting that changed the document completely from what the version that was submitted.
Really?
Yeah. it changed it enough.
With the lawyer.
Yeah, one of the lawyers working at the FBI somebody submitted the FISA warrant, changed it in a significant way, like enough where it's like, well, the original version submitted probably wouldn't have gotten the FISA warrant, the one that he submitted would, and you're like, well, that's oh. And there was something else about that, like a text message or an email or something that this guy sent out where he was talking about, my fingerprints are all over this. Talking about the Russia investigation. And you're like, yep, that's the lawyer who turned in this document that is different from the one submitted. Yeah, that's pretty. I don't have that clip pulled up or anything like that, but that's another thing that came out either earlier this week earlier last week or sometime last week.
Dude, that's a scary prospect.
Yeah,
I mean the entire government entity is supposed to be the will of the people, right? The president is elected via vote from the Electoral College, of whom the Electoral College electorates are voted on per district or within each state is the will of the people. The Senate is voted on the will of the people. The House of Representatives are directly voted by the will of the people. That's why, in your district, your House representatives should be representing that district's primary needs.
Yeah, it's supposed to.
Period. That's all they're supposed to be doing. AOC going out and talking about the Green New Deal, nobody in New York asked for that, ever.
No, and she has done nothing but hurt the district she's voted from.
Her job is to do what she was elected for. She's not doing her job. Most of Washington is no longer doing their jobs. They're elected for this, and instead they go off on their own tangents and align themselves with whatever groups are backing them and whatever profits they gain. And this is both Democrat and Republican. I'm sure it's, they both sides have their backers. But that is not what Congress was supposed to be at all. That's not what the executive branch was supposed to be at all. The executive branch is just one guy elected to represent internationally the will of the country, and Congress is legitimately the will of the country.
That's supposed to be.
All you're supposed to be arguing over. That's all you're supposed to be debating. Taxes, certain laws, legislation that passes that may negatively impact your district or your state, you'll vote against it, or if it does seem of a positive aspect to your state or your district, then you vote pro it, or you'll advocate for some legislation that is of benefit to your particular district. That is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And yet, in the last 2-3 years, none of that has happened at all. The only thing that's come out in the last 3 years is the Green New Deal, of which everyone
blast at and
what the hell is that? That's not even a thing.
Yeah, I can't even, other than that, nothing else has passed the House.
No, nothing.
Everything has been stagnating in committee.
Russia and
so the Senate can't do anything because bills have to originate from the House and then get voted on, get sent to the Senate, and then it starts the back and forth. Yeah, but
correct.
The Senate hasn't been able to do anything for 2.5 years.
Correct. Congress has done absolutely nothing other than investigate the president, and they have found absolutely nothing in 3 years of investigating the president. If you don't like him, let the man do his job. When he actually does something that is illegal, nail him. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But until then, do something. Do what you were elected for.
No, they can't do that because Orange Man bad.
Who cares? There were plenty of people who didn't like Reagan.
Yep.
Plenty of people who didn't like Nixon. Plenty of people who didn't like Clinton. Still the president.
Yeah, well, until they caught Nixon doing something that was illegal, and then...
Well, then he resigned.
Yeah, he resigned before they could impeach him. But
I'm just stating, just because someone is president who you don't necessarily agree with or don't like, they are still the president. They won the vote, which means a good portion of the country, a good portion of the population said, hey, this guy has good ideas. So that is simply the president. I didn't like Obama. I didn't vote for him for 8 years. I didn't like any of the stuff he passed. But at no point did I ever say he's not the president. At no point did I ever say we need to impeach him, get rid of him. He's horrible. Let's get rid of this guy and put our own guy in power. Never.
Yeah, I still don't think he was a legitimate president, because I think even if he wasn't born in Kenya, like some of that, he still had dual citizenship.
At this point,
yeah.
I think he did have legitimate U.S. citizenship. I don't know.
No, he had legitimate U.S. citizenship, but he was a citizen of the United States because of Hawaii. He was also a citizen of the Philippines, which is how he got a college scholarship based on that. I'm like,
it is what
citizenship. You can't be president if you are dual citizenship and you never renounce your citizenship to the other country.
However, he still had U.S. citizenship and he was elected. So I didn't like the guy.
Yeah.
But he was still the president. And that...
Yeah. And granted, there was a lot of stuff about that, but no impeachment was, you know... there's people talking about it, and, you know, they investigated the birth certificate and all that, but... And Trump was part of those, you know, birthers or whatever.
Yeah.
But no impeachment. Obama was still able to get things done.
He got reelected for a second term.
And the entire time, the media was kissing his butt. Trump gets the exact opposite treatment. And they're like, well, there's no doubt that he is a legitimate president to everybody who isn't a Democrat.
I'm just saying, you're not going to like everybody who's elected president.
And,
but once the majority of the country says, yeah, we're voting for this guy and they're the president, then they are the president and deal with it. Move on. Let's pass some actual legislation. If that president does something that's illegal, then let's investigate. Otherwise, let's stop with the farcity. Let's just move on. There's plenty of other stuff we need to concentrate on than this garbage.
All right. So I got a couple more Epstein memes to...
Oh, yeah. Bring them on.
Yeah. Rusty, those Christmas lights don't hang themselves. Neither did Epstein.
Man, that kid looks really young. I thought he was older.
Let's see. Where is this other one? There's a... Is this the actual Crowder one, or is this... Because I know there was more in here that I saw earlier today, but maybe I scrolled down a lot further. Where is the other one?
Ooh.
Okay. Oh, there it is. That's what I was looking for. This one's pretty good.
Yes.
Well, not that guy.
Yeah, everybody else. Yep. Not that guy.
It's pretty good too.
Fucking cameras, the Clinton suicide, Jeff Epstein is laying there like, what the?
All right. Oh, there it is in sign language. Yeah, this is one of the best ones though.
Oh.
Yeah. That's clever. Although, I think what you're saying earlier is like, yeah, probably not him, probably her, but
I mean, the way Bill Clinton talks, he seems a bit of just a charismatic pawn. He's just the upfront face that everyone likes to watch. That's how he can get away with almost raping women and doing what he did in the White House. I think there was actually a few accounts where they said it was actual rape. I don't know.
Yeah.
He was just a sexual pervert, but people still like him. He's a likable person.
So
But he
that's
doesn't seem to have that behind-the-scenes deviousness to carry out even what happened in Arkansas. I don't know.
so that's all I have prepped. There's one more thing I've got that's about a 4-minute-ish clip, but that's what I was going to end on. So it's up to you if you want to. It's 8:09. Do you want to try to go over a bit of more of the Communist Manifesto? Because at this rate, it's going to take us a year to get through.
Yeah, it seems like every 2 paragraphs we just get a long discussion about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we can. If we don't have any other news, let's see. Do I have anything else? Yeah, nothing really newsworthy. Yeah, I don't have anything else other than what we've already discussed within the last week or so. So, I mean, I guess we can. We can at least try and hit up another, maybe another page.
Where did I put it?
But I do have a question on this, though. So about a week or 2 ago, because we didn't do the stream last week, and so it was sometime within the last 2 weeks, I got on Discord and was discussing some of just basic economical structures with some of the people on Discord, and there are a lot of socialists online. There are a lot of socialists on Discord, and I found myself having trouble arguing with them to a point where I didn't have any rebuttals. I didn't have anything where I could say, well, it's because of this and this and this, and I have my points put out. All I could say is, you know what? I don't agree with you guys, but I don't have anything I could state against it. So it was a little demeaning. It made me feel as if I am not as prepared to discuss certain topics when it comes to very deep economical discussions. However, why are there so many socialists online, and how do they all have these deep economic talking points?
I'm not sure what you mean by deep economic talking points.
Mostly around like universal health care and social welfare nets. Because if you kind of go against them, it's as if you're stating, I don't give a crap about people that are struggling. And I don't know if it's a moral, not a moral dilemma. Obviously, I care about people that are struggling. However, it depends on why they're struggling. If you're struggling because you got a drug addiction, I'm sorry, you do not have my empathy. That's your own stupid fault. I'll try and do what I can to get you off of drugs, but I'm not going to give you everything and pat you on the back and say you're a wonderful person because you got hooked on drugs. I wouldn't do that for an alcoholic. I wouldn't do that for someone who went and just did something they knew was bad and completely screwed up their life. That's a completely different contrast of, say, someone who tried to raise their family, got a job, and then we had an economic collapse, and they lost their job, and their mortgage went south, and they, the home was foreclosed, and things like that. That's kind of outside of them. It wasn't their actions that caused it. It was external stimulus versus someone who did screw up their lives. And it seems most homeless people are either mentally ill or drug use. That's the vast majority.
Mm-hmm.
So that became one of the main topics I was discussing over the last week is homeless people and social welfare nets and universal health care. And anytime I brought that up, I don't know, I felt a little lacking, but I still knew why I felt the way I did about it. Understood why. It's because my hard work shouldn't go towards someone who doesn't want to work. That should never happen.
Yeah.
And yet, the more that they push for it, the more I see that that is only going to be what happens. It's not going to actually benefit people who need it. It's going to benefit people who are too lazy and don't want to work, but are smart enough to abuse the system to take more than what they need. Because we already see that in current social welfare programs.
Yeah.
We see families who say, man, I wish we weren't on food stamps. We'll take it when we got it, but as soon as I can make some money, we're off it. And that's the mentality people should be on. It shouldn't be a staple of your lifestyle. It should be the last resort of the last thing you lean to as a necessity because of hard times.
Well,
that's what safety net is.
Yeah. So part of that, and I think we've covered this before, but I'll hammer this point again, is a shift in mentality. So if something is granted by the government as a safety net, like welfare, right? The welfare, food stamps, and things along those lines, if it's a guarantee by the government, well, then it's no longer something you are grateful for. It's something you are entitled to. It's something you get, and if they don't give it to you, that's a problem. That's them stealing from you. That's them taking. Whereas before it became a safety net through the government, and when it was a safety net through religious organizations, through schools, through, communities and things like that, then it became this is something I don't deserve, and they're giving it to me anyway. And then it became a sense of gratitude. And one of the main, granted, this is not a real life thing, but there's that scene in Cinderella Man. I think that Cinderella Man's a boring movie, but there's that scene where he's going around the office with his hat in hand, and you can see it on his face and on the face of everybody in the crowd. It's during the Great Depression, when everybody is having hard times, and you can see it on his face in that scene when he's like, I don't want to do this. This is the last thing I want to do this, but I've got to provide for my family, and I can't do it with, working at the docks every other day. So he's going around to all these people who are, who can afford it, and begging for them to help him keep the gas on in his house and provide food for his children.
Yep.
That's how things should be when you're like, yeah, I'm in a bad situation. I don't want to ask for help, but I'm glad you guys are able to. That's the attitude people should have.
That's an excellent perspective. And maybe we can kind of get into that philosophy of it rather than jump into continued pages of the Communist Manifesto until we designate a specific time for that discussion. But is there a mentality shift on essentials and pride? So
yes,
the era we grew up in, it was deemed to be a detriment or a lack of pride when you had to beg for help.
Yeah.
It is the same reason I don't even ask my own brothers for help unless I am extremely desperate and there's nothing else to go to.
Yeah, and it's...
As I mentioned earlier, I'm running through my own issues currently. But...
And not to get too personal or whatever, but our mom tells a story of having a toothache and having to chip out her own tooth Castaway style because she did not want to ask for help.
Yeah, no dental plan, couldn't afford going to the dentist.
Like, wow, yeah. I was like, man, I didn't realize it was that kind of situation. So, I mean, that's
the society we grew up in. Is your pride is what you can provide and your ability to be what you say you are. So when you say, I'm going to do it, and you show up and do it, that's because your pride is on the line.
Yeah, and I do want to clarify, is like, yeah, for anybody watching this or listening to this, we're not poor or desperate or anything like that. Our mom was in a bad situation for a couple of years due to personal reasons, and she is now living with our brother in Italy and having the time of her life, and has her own apartment at their house and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we did
good.
grow up.
It's not the case where we're abandoning our mother and she's, living off the street, chipping out her own teeth.
We would never do that.
Yeah, it was kind of the, wow, okay, she was struggling financially, didn't tell anybody, and then she did this, and everybody's like, okay, that's the, whoa, we need to do something. This is not.
But I mean, we did grow up poor. We grew up in the poverty level.
Yeah, like we'd spend, like, when we weren't at school where there was heat, we'd spend the entire weekends playing games while we're all settled, and covered up in a blanket, sitting on the same furnace vent.
Yeah, because it was the only vent in the house. We didn't have central heating. There's one vent with a wood stove below us in the basement.
Yeah.
So entire days at a time, the whole family sitting on a vent with no socks on, so our feet could stay warm.
Yeah. And then, if you had to get something outside of the blanket, good luck. We're all counting on you.
your hat, go grab it, and come back.
Yeah. It's like, no, I don't want to do it. No, it's your turn. No, it's your turn. No, you have to. Oh, I've got to use the bathroom. Oh, no. Ha ha, it sucks to be you.
I mean, we thought, like, cheesy rice casserole was a treat. I mean, that's a bare bones dinner.
Yeah.
Rice and cheese are as cheap as it gets, but that was our weekend. Oh man, finally we get to have something great. Otherwise, it was just bologna or PB&J for the entire week.
Yeah.
So we've grown up in that, but that mentality means you appreciate help it, but it also means what you earn is what you have gotten with your two hands, what you have reached out and grabbed, what you have used your mind to educate yourself and learn, the accomplishments you as a person have done. And it almost seems nowadays as if the only achievements people are worried about are social status, as if that has replaced real life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got all these weird ethos just stating, hey, I'm hot, and the only chick you should be giving your money to is me because I'm special like that, right? And there's all these ethos on Twitch, and they're getting hundreds of dollars a month.
Yeah, and they're
they show some cleavage.
Yeah, and they're complaining about the Microsoft one. I forget the name of that. It's not. So there's Twitch, and then it's competitor, and they're complaining. I was like, oh, can you believe their terms of service? They say you can't show any cleavage, or they're gonna cancel your channel.
Good.
It's like, yeah, because it's not for you to be yeah.
What is that? The Ninja guy, the biggest Twitch streamer, switched over to that, and then I think another 2 or 3 big Twitch streamers also merged over.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a social media platform like that, just used for live streaming. But why do Twitch thoughts think that they deserve money just simply for showing some cleavage? When does that ever deserve any money?
I don't know. And there's that one lady who was like, I should get money for breastfeeding my kid on camera.
Yeah. Why is that a thing? Is she the only one who ever breastfeed ever?
I was like,
no.
Have these women never heard of live streaming porn sites? Because that's the stuff that goes on there.
Yeah,
but, Cam Soda. That's the big one that had kind of like virtual something or other. That's like they're go on there and show your boobs and people will pay you money. If that's what you're gonna do. But like, oh no, that's I would never do that. I'm just gonna sit here on Twitch and pretend to play video games, which is what the platform is supposed to be for. And then these women play video games for 5 minutes of a 3-hour long stream. That yeah, okay, that's legitimate.
But I mean, so we've got a younger generation where their Twitter retweets are important, and or their Instagram followers, the number of followers they've got on Instagram, is more important than what they actually do in real life.
Well, yeah. So that's the other thing with the Groyper kids that I keep pointing out is like, okay, you criticize the Daily Wire, you criticize TPUSA. What have you done other than protesting these events? These people started organizations. These people have been changing people's views on things. What have you done? Absolutely nothing.
Hero, he built his multi-million-dollar business with his own 2 hands. You can pretty much watch that since like 2012. He used to work for Breitbart News.
Yep.
He built Daily Wire up from the ground up, and you can watch it if you've been following him for the last decade. You can watch it in front of your own eyes. Just if he can do it, why can't you do it?
Yeah, what's like, oh, if you don't like the way they're running their business, go build something yourself and do it. That's why I was like, yeah, that's why I keep calling it like, yeah, you guys are leftists because that's what they do. They're like, oh, Netflix is really great, but I don't like their content. So I'm going to go join Netflix. I'm going to change what Netflix is and infuse my values and my viewpoints into something people are already like and enjoy. I like Star Wars, but really, they don't have enough strong female characters. I mean, there's Leia, but she's not the star, and she doesn't get to do everything possible without making any mistakes for no apparent reason. So let's make a Star Wars movie where there's a main hero who doesn't have to do anything to be the most powerful person in the series.
Oh,
okay. Or
maybe it'd be entirely different. subject or maybe just offline. I was reading some stuff about. So there was the original Star Wars trilogy,
Yeah.
and George Lucas made the prequels,
Mhm.
and then there's an entire series of novels, kind of like mixed up, that was actually considered canon, of which George Lucas said, "Yep, we'll accept that in the Star Wars universe." So there's an entire backlog of comic books.
Dude, there's all kinds of cool stuff.
And one of the most popular is was her name Mara Jade or Mara something?
Yeah, she's the one from the Clone
Wife
Wars.
of Luke Skywalker. She was Luke Skywalker's wife, and she started out under Emperor Palpatine as a young child, being raised to be an assassin. And she used to fight against Luke Skywalker and hate him, and just due to various circumstances. And so I watched the guy's YouTube video on that whole.
Wait, am I thinking of the right? Isn't she the one that was part of the Clone Wars? Isn't that Mara Jade?
She was involved in the Clone Wars, yes.
Yeah, she's one of those aliens with the 2 tentacle
No,
things, right?
No.
No, okay.
No, that's a different Jedi. Mara Jade was strong in the Force, but she was more of like a Han Solo-ish type character.
Okay.
She was like an assassin, just freelance, brutal person, but was extremely adept in the Force. Later on in life, started to learn to use lightsabers and Force powers and whatnot. But her entire objective was to go track down Luke Skywalker and kill him, but they ended up winding up on the same planet, deserted, and had to rely upon each other.
Luke Skywalker, the Clone Wars was
Luke Skywalker.
Obi-Wan.
So that's who he married and had 2 or 3 children. That's like the perfect continuation.
Yeah.
There was actually backstory of
she
was present in Jabba the Hutt. What is it? Return of the Jedi, the third one.
Mm-hmm. Like during that whole escape scene or rescue scene.
She went in to establish herself within Jabba's fortress to go get Luke Skywalker because she knew he was headed there. But Jabba doesn't fall under mind control. And so she had to go into hiding, crawled into some of the vents, and actually watched all the events of the third movie during the Jabba the Hutt scene from a vent. She was there.
Yeah, that's like that's the appropriate. Yeah.
Was established a new female character, was very strong in the Force, independent, grew out of hardship, and yet becomes a hero. Yeah. That's exactly what they should have done. And I read a lot of that backline and watched tons of videos on it. I was like, why didn't they do that?
Yeah. I also want to know why they didn't do Darth Jar Jar, because that would have completely redeemed the
Darth Jar Jar would have been a better thing.
That would have made the original trilogy like, dude, okay. Yeah. Cheesy, overly CGI, doesn't matter. That one thing would have saved it.
Rey actually has a lot of the backstory and attributes of one of the Skywalker's children, Luke and Mara Jade's children. But they disregarded that whole.
It's like, nope, never mind. She's not a descendant of Luke.
Skywalker. She's a nobody, and that just kind of blows. Why Skywalker anything? What did the Skywalkers have to do with the Star Wars universe? Yeah, apparently nothing. Once they've killed themselves off.
Yeah.
Now everything's balanced out. That was the point. No Skywalkers. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either. There's also a whole bunch of other side stories about other parts of the galaxy and bounty hunters, and so while I don't plan on subscribing to Netflix or to not Netflix but Disney Plus, The Mandalorian looks awesome.
I've been hearing some very good reviews, and it's actually directed by Jon Favreau.
Yeah. And I'm like, man, I want to watch that series. Not enough for Disney Plus.
I heard they're actually possibly approaching him for future Star Wars movies because the last 2 have been a flop.
Yeah.
And the third one, screen testing, has been horrid.
Yeah, he knows sci-fi. He knows special effects. He knows Star Wars.
There's Iron Man, a B Avenger.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the biggest blockbuster
movies
in the entire history.
The foundation for the current Marvel MCU. Yeah, if anybody can save Star Wars, yeah.
I mean, who read Iron Man comics before that? Only diehard Iron Man fans, which are few and far between. He wasn't the top of the list.
Yeah. Yeah, he knows sci-fi. He knows comics. That's his wheelhouse. And if you saw Cowboys versus Aliens, you're like, yeah, he's not just Marvel. He can do sci-fi alien stories really, really well. Like, I thought Cowboys vs. Aliens was awesome. It was like a great concept and a great movie. Yeah.
That was a good movie. I mean, it was almost like it was like Independence Day mixed with Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird, but it was like these two genres clashed, and you're like, what the hell? This is badass.
Yeah. And you're like, well, taking the, like, okay, he can do something like that with these other, what can he do with Star Wars? I'm like, yeah. Like, J.J. Abrams, that's the other crazy thing. Why would you task him with Star Wars? You saw how he kind of maybe did okay with Star Trek.
I think Jon Favreau is good at building an overall story that has a first, second, and third act that build towards something to where it's memorable.
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams is good with visual effects and building tense moments.
Yeah.
Building unexpected, like what just happened. And he's excellent at that, but he can never seem to wrap it up.
Yeah. Like,
so always feeling of, did that mean anything? I don't know. It happened with Lost.
Yeah, with Lost, I mean, it's been kind of his.
He can build the intensity. He can build this unnatural uneasiness that just makes you say, "What is going on?" And this kind of distortion of what you understand or perceive within said movie universe.
Yeah.
And he's fantastic at building that.
Yeah,
but
he did really good with Mission Impossible, bringing that from what number 2 did to that series, and he actually brought it back kind of Fast and Furious style and made it a valuable, like a bankable franchise. But when it came to Star Wars and Star Trek, both of them had been just plummeting, and you're like, why would you hand him this? This is not something.
Well,
this is not in his.
I did like the first Star Trek reboot. I thought that was decent.
It was decent.
The con one, there was a lot of stuff. I'm like, why?
Shoehorn too much shoehorning in of.
It just the MacGuffin inputs, where the random, and this is what shifts everyone's belief of what's happening around them. That's unfortunately that's J.J. Abrams' weakness. So why not use the both? Use Jon Favreau's ability to understand what fans want and what builds the hype, and then use J.B. Abrams to build, say, that first and second act up to the unexpected, and then have someone who can accurately wrap everything up to what would be expected. I mean, you would have a monstrous Star Wars would be redeemed. Poof. But we're going to get a 9th Star Wars, and then who knows if we're going to get anything in the main trilogy or the main sequence after that, because
it's been butchered so much, and
But I mean, and wrapping that back up to the original topic, it does not seem that people understand the difference anymore, or they're slowly losing the understanding of reality versus what's perceived in their head or what's perceived online.
Well, now I was saying, the more importantly, the original point was they take something that exists, something that has a fan base, something that is attractive to a lot of people.
Something that works.
They gut it. They take out all of the goodness and throw in their whatever, their value system. And it's like, no, it's the value system that was originally there is what made it good.
We could have put any other character. We could have put any other setting. It's just the value system that made it good.
Yeah.
You have replaced the one thing that made this good.
And you're like, well, we just throw this and slap this on together. See, look, now it's good. And I'm like, you just took out everything that made it watchable, made it entertaining. That's like all the core of what it was. You took that out. We saw that with the Ghostbusters reboot, and with I didn't see this one. But yeah, I guess this is not quite the same thing, but the Charlie's Angel reboot is tanking too.
I didn't even like I watched the other reboot, right, with Drew Barrymore and Lucy Liu, and I don't even remember who the third actor.
The first one was kind of entertaining. The second one was pretty awful as a movie, but it exists.
Easy, they're doing like Matrix over backwards dodging stuff and multiple kicks in the air, Liu Kang style and whatnot. It's not believable, but it had some entertaining value. But it wasn't something that I'd say, man, I want to watch that 10 times.
Yeah,
kind of watch it once and say, man, that's all right.
Yeah, it's not that was awful, what a waste of my time and money. It's no, it was good for what it was.
Yeah, the second one, they stripped some of that out. I don't remember the second one.
Nah, I don't remember it either. I just remember it had Demi Moore in it.
But not Drew Barrymore, Demi Moore. and she came out of the sea in a bikini, kind of
Yeah.
like James Bond film-ish.
Yeah.
But that was commercials. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it was.
The recent one tanked, and Elizabeth Banks is blaming Spider-Man and men not wanting to see female action. I was like, no.
She originally came out that it was not a movie for men.
And it did well. Yeah, it did well.
Not to see a movie that's not for men, which means either men just need to sit and suffer in white knight in order to support strong women, which means they are dependent on men, which kind of negates the fact of strong women.
Yeah.
Or two,
it's
she
crappy movie.
made a crappy movie and is just looking for anyone to blame.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted to watch it, including women, because it's just that.
And my response to that was Underworld, 1 point something billion off of 300 something million total, something crazy like that. I sent her the actual numbers. So Underworld, Resident Evil, Tomb Raider, both all three Tomb Raiders made money off of their
Those are really good points. So Underworld is considered just kind of a decent movie, like the first one, right? Tomb Raider is just considered to fans it's good, to non-fans it's whatever. However, all those roles are a strong female protagonist, but they're not all encompassing. They're not without their faults. However, they've all made a lot of money because they understood that take the cheesy aspects and it is just simply an action flick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other one that I listed off was Alita Battle Angel. That made 2.5 times its budget back. So something it made like I think they spent like 300 million on it, or no, sorry, not 300 million, 120 million, and made over 300 million on it.
That's surprising. With as much CGI effects they had in there, that's surprising.
It was like I was like, oh, they made like 3 times their money, not just U.S. but internationally, and they were up against Captain Marvel, which Captain Marvel pulled in 1 point something billion. And you're like, yeah, okay, there's 2 movies that were out within a month of each other that had their run at the box office. Both of them made enough to warrant sequels. And yet she's like, oh, men don't want to see action movie with, like, I didn't want to see Captain Marvel, but it was tied to the Endgame, Avengers Endgame-ish.
At least that's what was hinted.
Yeah.
It really had nothing to do.
Alita was my one of my favorite films of that year, like my favorite film in recent memory.
I'm also an anime fan, and I watched a lot of the original Alita Battle Angel anime years ago.
Yeah, I don't remember it at all.
I have some ties to it, but I thought they did an excellent job in the fact that they portrayed. The stupid thing is it doesn't matter if it's a man or woman. It is the hero's journey. It's what they seem to be missing. There has to be someone who is capable with potential but fails.
Yeah.
And then you have to overcome those failures. That's what makes them a hero. Because that's what relates to the normal person is, I have failures. I know I have failures. But you're stating, maybe I can overcome those failures and be a better person. It's what drives other people to be inspired from these heroes.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that this person had failures and flaws and overcame them.
Yeah.
Just make a badass person with no flaws. That's not really relatable. It's not in the same realm. That's like you being in class and someone else in gym class who just has all of the physicality of every single sport and dominates everything, and you just can't compete. Those are the people you resent.
So you're talking about being a woman versus a trans man, a trans female,
Yeah, I mean, it's going that way, but those are the people you resent.
Yeah.
No matter how hard you try, there are people who don't even have to try, and they're just simply better in all aspects of whatever it is you're engaging in.
Like this trans female broke all of the track records and then broke all the powerlifting records and then.
Oh yeah, within months of becoming trans, right?
No, I'm saying one individual could break something like break all of the records for running and then also the record for squats and lifting and basketball points. You're like, no, that's what.
Here's one theory discussion I got in within Discord in the last week or so, and it was about the trans community. I kind of brought that topic up, and someone who was trans said, if you're on hormones for 5 years, your body has fully adjusted to the opposite gender. Of which I promptly stated, no, that sounds like bullshit.
Yeah.
However, they said, well, scientific consensus says no, that your body does conform. Like, if someone's been training as, say, an Olympic athlete like Jenner,
yeah,
for decades, 5 years later, they're still going to kick the shit out of any woman that Jenner comes up against.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless if he's got boobs or puts on a dress or whatever, Bruce Jenner, I mean, man,
he can still outperform like 50% of men.
How badass you think the badass?
Yeah, he can probably still run a triathlon or compete in a triathlon and beat 70 to 80% of dudes competing.
The only exceptions might be people like Ronda Rousey that are MMA trained. Could maybe beat him in a hand-to-hand fight.
Yeah.
And that's because Ronda Rousey is the top of...
Yeah. It's that overlap, right? There's the top female and the so...
And because he's also not MMA trained.
Yeah.
However, just because he's been on hormones for a couple years, or any dude, does not mean their bone density has magically just reduced, that their muscle density is magically reduced. After 40-something years of being a dude, that doesn't happen. That's kind of irreversible at that point.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw Mike, I think it was Mike Ripito. Mike Ripito, coach or something like that. I forget what his credentials are. But he was talking about most of the biological differences between men and women not determined through their lifetime of testosterone and estrogen differences. Most of it comes in the womb during fetal development.
As soon as they're born.
Yeah. As soon as they're born, the differences exist.
Blam, massive difference.
Yeah.
It's like an explosion.
Because he talked about, one of the main differences between women and men when it comes to physicality is men have more explosive energy release with their muscles. Yeah. That's not something hormones can change after the fact. That is something that is there by birth or it's not there at all.
Well, I mean, so we already have this built into, say, youth sports.
Yeah.
Youth soccer, there can actually be females on the male team, and some of them are excellent. In fact, my son was on, not this current indoor season, but previous indoor season, and there was an all-girl team, and they only had 2 dudes, twins. They stomped everybody. They were phenomenal. However, once you get to about 13, 14, that puberty age, the difference becomes so stark, you cannot put women into those boys' soccer realms. They become the weakest link entirely.
Yeah, did you see that that relay race, like the mixed relay race, where it was 4 women and they were like halfway through the track, and then this dude just blows past all of them. Like maybe I gotta pull that clip up because that was ridiculous.
Yeah, because it is the way it is, and it's not men bragging and hey, men are just better physically. It is simply the way it is. If you can accept what you have in real life, you have something to work off of and something to build forward. But when you're just in denial of reality, what is there to build off of? Because your foundation is nothing. It is fluff.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find that clip, because I was like, yeah, that was ridiculous. And that's the let me see if this is it.
I mean, okay, so in any athletic sport, most women go into some sort of like gymnastics or floors or the vault or whatever. However, a lot of youth are still condensed together, males and females, up to a certain age. And that tends to be right about puberty, and then it just drastically splits. At that point, because of what you're born with and what your body decides, okay, time to grow into what I'm actually supposed to be, massive difference.
Yeah, and there's no amount of hormones you can give somebody after the fact
And even with hormone blockers, someone may be lesser in strength or stature or whatever, but there's still a difference. Their bodies were already growing differently before they ever popped out of the womb.
Mm-hmm.
This pace, they've taken it.
Yeah, maybe I can't find that clip, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, but those are kind of some controversial and hard subjects to discuss who is trans, because if you happen to be in that line of thought, you want people to be a positive mindset around you, right? You want people to support you and, hey, you're this and that. And when you come to someone who just says, look, that's fine if you want to be trans, I'm just stating some facts, they become the enemy. They become the person who is opposed to what it is you're trying to develop into. But with those specific discussions, there are still some real life aspects that people just simply cannot ignore, and that are going to become more commonplace, where we're going to see more trans athletes, as in trans women, men transition to women, dominating whatever sport they come into, until the light bulb finally clicks.
Yeah, okay,
Regular women saying, screw this, men have taken over women's sports. That's going to be the next phase. And as soon as they state that, because they're supposed to be women, quote unquote, that's going to be a gigantic controversy. You can't say that. But there's demonstrable proof.
Yeah. So here's that clip. Oh wait, that's not playing in the Hangout. Give me a second here.
I reckon Poland have got a.
So.
Income past and Abbas finished. The moment it was dropped, just a
rewind here.
Poland, Jamaica might, but
so. Yeah, right around here.
Champion.
So she's way ahead.
Great Britain, USA, I would expect to overhaul Poland, Jamaica might, but can Great Britain and can Bahrain? Martin Rooney takes it for Great Britain and Northern Ireland. I thought for a moment it was dropped. Just a check from Martin Rooney. That might have cost fractions as Bahrain come past and Abbas finished very, very well yesterday. And the chase is on
this one cuts to the wrong camera. Oh, there it is. Dude, she was like, she had so much distance on him, and he just blows past her and goes on like it's not even. She had she had this huge lead, and he's just. And then these other guys catch up to her as well.
On the anchor leg, Martin Rooney trying to close, but the Bahraini athlete is strong, and he in turn is closing at Francis. And Francis
like, look how far ahead he is now. it's like double the distance that she had ahead of him. And then all four of these guys pass her. She was first, like first out the gate. All she had to do was cross the line first, and all four dudes passed her.
I mean. Yeah, okay, I see what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All four beat her to the finish line, and she was the first out the gate, and she had a sizable advantage there. Yeah, that's you can't.
Yeah, her in a race with that dude who sprinted ahead of her. If it was one-on-one, like, say, a 100-meter dash...
Oh, it wouldn't even... Yeah.
...contest.
Yeah.
He would have finished before she got halfway. It's just...
Yeah, so he had to catch up to her, and then he passed her up by, like, 4 times that lead she had.
Yeah. So, for anybody watching, not stating she's not an athlete, or that she's not very capable.
No, this is in the Olympics.
Yeah, just looking at her physique, that's a very strong woman.
This is World Relay, maybe not the Olympics, but these are Olympic level athletes.
Yes. But I mean, if you look at any woman in the clip, even the women who are handing baton off in the background, they're all extremely lean, fit. You can see their muscles there. The muscles just don't build like the guys do.
Yeah.
It does not happen. It's impossible.
the one Olympic category where women have beaten or have the highest record is long distance swimming, and that record difference is not very big. Every other category, men have, like, the top 10 men have a higher score than the top female. It's and it's probably more than that. It's probably more than just the top 10. The difference is, you can't even...
If you were to take a look at the anatomy of the human body and the way the muscles work, right?
Mhm.
Muscles get their energy, and especially burst energy, to the amount of fuel available, the amount of body mass, and oxygen.
Yeah.
So if your typical human lungs are about the same size within men and women, it would mean that women can use their lungs to full capacity of a more or equal to more of a capacity.
Well, yeah, so there's that, but there's also
versus a man's.
Yeah.
Where they would feel fatigue early on because they're not getting enough oxygen to fuel the muscles during extreme workouts, something long distance like swimming.
Yeah, so there's also to deal with bone density, where women have less dense bones, and so they're more buoyant, which makes so it doesn't help in in sprint swimming, but it does help in distance swimming, because they're using less energy to stay afloat and to keep swimming. So it helps with the endurance aspect of that.
I would say especially if men are more burst energy.
Yeah.
All that oxygen is concentrated at once and all the muscles. And then very quickly, lactic acid and everything else starts to decrease your strength and sap at you and burn very quickly.
But it's even more. So the difference is even more pronounced in like the short distance, like the 50-yard dash and things like that. And then it's something like the top 30 dudes have a faster time than the top female. It's and even and it's like by seconds as opposed to like microseconds. Like, oh, he's point something seconds ahead of this guy, and he's point something, and then the female like 2 seconds behind the 30 dude at 30.
If you're looking at this from kind of an objective standpoint, I think it would be easy to state that men, just due to their overall body mass in general, and especially when it comes to more athletic builds, require a bit more oxygen, a bit more body mass, and a bit more energy to do what it is they do.
Mhm.
And their bodies are built more towards burst strength and whatever it is they need to do.
And all of that is determined before birth, not after birth, pumping hormones. So it's
what that would also imply is that there are very athletic women, and however much they try, they're never going to achieve the top tier of most of the athletic men's tier. So why not just have women compete against women, men compete against men, as we have done for over centuries, and make that a fair thing, because it's almost two different classes of athletic beings.
Yeah.
And it's not that one's better than the other, they're just simply different. Nobody has ever stated women athletes are the worst. It is just simply their athletic prowess or their burst speed, their burst athleticism is less than what a man can perform.
Yeah.
So why not have two different categories, of which is already established?
And it's to the point that a barely qualifying male competitor pumped with estrogen, even for the however long that individual said, it's like 6 months or something like. Wait, how long did they say? When there was no, there's no
5 years, and it becomes equivalent. And I call
even 5 years.
Studies, and I'm like, I can't accept those because that's not real. I don't care what scientific. So
even 5 years of hormones, somebody who was bottom rung, barely qualifying for male events, would still dominate female events.
So here's one of the big issues, right? When debating, things should be based off of scientific ideology, scientific precedents, and stating, hey, this is used a scientific method and has proved such and such to be true or such and such to be false. We live in a day and age where that is no longer true. So when you read a scientific report, doesn't mean it's scientific. It could be extremely biased.
Yeah.
And negating multiple actual scientific factors. I mean, we also saw what was it? One of the Williams sisters, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Went up
No, it's
against
both of them.
like the 200th ranked guy who went
Yeah.
out drinking all night, smokes about a pack and a half a day,
Mm-hmm.
kicked the crap out of her.
Yeah, no, both of them. He beat both of them in the same day, back to
Yeah,
back. Like,
with a hangover and horrible lungs, and just kicked the crap out of them.
yeah.
This dude wasn't even. He's like bottom tier in the world rankings.
Yeah,
I
he's
think
like he's like barely in the ranks.
Barely, yeah.
Yeah, he like it's impressive that he's qualifying because I mean there's a lot of people who play tennis who don't even. But the fact that this is not like the top 10 or the top 100. This dude was like 205 or something, or maybe like 195.
Drinking all night and smoked a pack a day.
Yeah.
And still kick the crap out of them. What? There's obviously something different.
Mm-hmm.
Here, it's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 plus apple is we don't know what. You're comparing two different things.
Yeah.
So, however, we've got multiple scientific studies that seem to have a strong bias towards a particular ideology in current scientific circles.
Oh yeah, I mean they changed the DSM-5. They changed all these things that are supposed to be scientific, and they're putting in language to appease.
After 5 years, you're fully trans, and there is no difference between you and the sex of which you are transitioning to. And the only thing I could state is no, that's just BS. That's not true, but I don't have anything to back me up.
How long has Bruce been trans?
It's been about, I will say, at least 4 years.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years.
But we can't go off of one particular person. That's anecdotal.
Yeah, that would be anecdotal, but
I think in current day scientific realms, ideology is winning over actual science.
Oh yeah, dude, that's been like that. So that was
okay. Scientific endeavors to say one statement or another, and it's not actual science anymore.
Yeah, and not to start a whole nother tributary of this line of ideas, but that's the academic thing was proved by those guys who submitted a chapter of Mein Kampf with feminist jargon thrown in instead of racist jargon.
Oh yeah. They applauded it and said this is wonderful.
Yeah,
and they had that one about
the sex in a park was patriarchy.
Yeah, it's part of the yeah.
Dog sex
a bunch
in
of DSM articles, of which they had half a dozen or almost a dozen actually published in scientific articles.
Yeah.
Later to find out, no, we just made that crap up and it's actually nonsensical.
Yeah, this is all BS and you guys published it in your journals and yeah. And then, so the other thing is the stuff that gets passed into climate change scientific journals as well. That's also been proven. It's like, yeah, they've got the same
thing, right? It's taken a couple hundred years for Western society to develop the scientific method to where they say this is what actually equates to science.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't just happen in a day. It wasn't like a decade or so. It took a while to progress into where people understood, yep, this makes sense. If we can form a hypothesis, it makes sense in the physical realm.
Mm-hmm.
We try and be as objective as possible. We measure it. We can observe it. And if we pass all of those experiments onto someone else, they will come up with the same results.
Yeah.
Then that seems to be scientific. And yet nowadays, that's not the case at all. I mean, not at all. One doctor can have these results. Another doctor can have complete opposite results and say, well, they forgot such and such factors. And the other doctor will like, well, they didn't equate for such and such factors. And yet, when you actually read the documentation, some doctors already knew about those factors. They just didn't include it in their statistics because it seemed arbitrary to them, or it didn't seem like it equated into the experiment. And yet it had a massive impact on the experiment. What are we supposed to do with that? And yet we're supposed to declare these people as our scientific knowledge, our expertise of the day and age. And it seems less and less like we actually have science and more and more like we have partisan hacks that have some scientific knowledge.
And the other side of that is science is supposed to be able to predict the future. So not only, hey, did we test all this sort of things, but we could also apply this and get a reasonable that, hey, this made sense in our test settings, and now we can apply it in the real world, and we can see the same similar results in the real world. And yet, when it comes to climate science, no, hey, we tested all these under our conditions, and then when we go to predict future events or we go to apply this in other areas, no, it's vastly different, so it's not even close. Oceans were supposed to be 12 inches higher by now. We were supposed to be, all the ice in Antarctica and in the North Pole was supposed to be melted by now. Nope. Various predictions, and like, yeah, that if your science is that far off, you can't trust whatever you were testing as legitimate, because if you look at something like physics, when you're talking about like the acceleration of something, it's not like you test something in a school and you're like, well, if we drop this on these test conditions, we'll get a max speed of whatever, and then if we run into a real world situation, oh, we get a vastly different... No. Otherwise, we would have no safety tests for cars. All of those are done inside,
Actually,
test
that's
environments.
True. So, let's say when it comes to physics,
yeah,
when you actually use physics measurements and formula that have already been established as part of the physics basic handbook,
yeah,
it is because when you apply those to what we perceive around us,
yeah,
what you expect to happen does happen. So when you drop something,
this is,
in this area of the globe, in this couple of milliseconds, you'll see it achieve its velocity or its maximum velocity. You see it hit this point, and you can estimate the rate of acceleration and the maximum rate of terminal velocity. All of this is measurable and is equatable and is accurate.
Yeah, well, like bungee jumping would be impossible if this was, right? You're like, well, you have to be able to calculate the length of rope you're going to need, how much stretch is going to be with the weight of the person. If that is off by as much as the climate change people have been off, you're talking about hundreds of people dying trying to do bungee jumping every year, possibly every day. If you're off on
the question I have, I guess, is there are sciences and there are practices, there are scientific principles out there that do seem to be proven true, especially within physics, the realms of gravity, even astronomic projections, and black holes and stuff. There are things that look like they could hold true, and when put under perspective of another scientific observer, they seem to hold sway. They seem to have the same measurements. It seems to hold its weight. It seems to be sound.
Yeah, like we can predict eclipses.
Correct.
We can predict meteor showers. We can predict comets coming back.
We know eclipses down to the second.
Yeah.
However, when it comes to physiological beings and their psychological counterpart on what you perceive yourself, not accurate whatsoever. No. And when it comes to environmentalism, not accurate at all. Like not even close. In fact, there is practically no difference between now and 50 years ago as far as climate goes.
Yeah.
I mean,
and the amount of CO2 in the air and the parts per million is vastly different
from back then. We don't know. And yet, we have a younger group that has been persuaded that this is scientific evidence, that they have these reports, that the scientists of which they have listened to are valid scientists, and that this is accredited and it is broadly accepted. How do you kind of argue against that? When you're basing science and they're claiming it's science, and yet it's not, you could disprove certain parts of it. That's the tough part I'm running into is just trying to convince these guys, I don't think you were taught actual science.
No. So all of the, it's kind of circling this full conversation back as we wrap this up. What you're describing is the appeal to authority fallacy, because that's what they're basing they're like, oh, but our scientists say, our psychologists say, the people who built the MD5, they're the experts, they know. And it's like, well, if the experts are telling you something that doesn't align with reality, then the experts are wrong, and appealing to them as experts is the appeal to authority fallacy. It's saying it's the position these people hold is superior to objective reality. That's what they're falling victim to. They're like, it's like, no, that's not true. You can measure this. You can point to real world examples where what you point or what your experts claim is true. Real world examples disprove them. So the only thing that they have going for them is the fact that you view them as an authority figure on the subject.
Okay, so let me put this in a different perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Scientifically or even religious based, the appeal to authority does exist.
It does exist, and it is a incorrect argument because
correct.
Yeah,
It should not exist in either capacity.
Yeah,
it shouldn't exist because of God's commandments or whatever. Either God does exist or He doesn't. Either what His word says is or it isn't.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't matter what mankind says about it. It shouldn't matter what this authority says about it. It shouldn't matter what you can observe and what you compare with what's considered God's word versus others. Same thing with science.
Yeah.
Does science add up? If such and such is stated, is that what you get out, or do you get some other? Well, that's just a variable, and it's just blah 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 blah, and it's a variable we couldn't account for. Well, then your science is flawed.
Yeah.
You account for that. Obviously, this doesn't fit within your model.
And people who make statements like that are continually incorrect are supposed to lose credibility. But instead, we've got a model where these experts are experts, and so they were just wrong or they were just flawed. They just made a mistake, and it's like, well, they've been making mistakes for however long. How soon until they stop being experts? And the people who promote them as experts never put that together and be like, oh, this person isn't an expert because they've been wrong more often than they've been right. That's not an expert. An expert is someone who is like, this brain surgeon is an expert brain surgeon, and he's killed 90% of the people who come to him for brain surgery. Yeah, that's not an expert. That's somebody who's probably gonna get his license removed for.
So the question is on that. It almost seems, if you don't necessarily have any preconceived notions growing up, the world is just simply what it is. It's easier to have a discussion. But when you do have preconceived notions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're raised from a young age that, hey, this is what being trans is, and this is what non-genderism is. It gets stuck in your head. Or by a different category, this is what it means to be a Christian, or this is what it means to be a Catholic, or this is what it means to be a Muslim, or this is what it means to be a Buddhist, or this is what it means there is no God. This is the way the world works, and don't believe anybody that tells you there is a God. It's just your general atheist line of thinking. Once a youth gets indoctrinated, and that kind of becomes part of their core belief growing up, it seems very difficult to break. And so what I'm finding is, as I'm discussing things with, say, late teens, early 20s, this has been their core doctrine growing up.
Yeah.
It is now a core belief, and it is difficult to argue against, because even when you present truth, it doesn't click. And all they can present is all these have fallacies, but I can't necessarily state, well, that scientist can be refuted via such and such.
Well, that's
aspect of their argument for the last.
That's the ultimate. Oh, sorry, I keep interrupting. But sorry. So that's the ultimate harm in the appeal to authority fallacy, because as long as they keep looking to people as experts, and that's the thing, it's like they've been raised in this mentality. A lot of these people grew up in the Catholic Church, and that, like we've talked about last week, that holy tradition and all of that sort of thing is saying, don't believe your eyes, believe what I tell you. And then they go to school, and school is saying the same thing. School is
don't believe your own thought, don't believe your brain, don't believe your perception, believe what we tell you.
Yeah, what the authority, what the teachers tell you, what the principal is telling you. And then they look in at the TV, and the TV is saying, hey, don't believe what you people are, or what the evidence is showing about Trump. Believe what politicians are saying about Trump, and not the Republican guys. Believe what the Democrats are saying. Oh, this is a bombshell. This exploded. This is bad for Trump, and he's a corrupt guy, and we're not impeaching him. But never mind the reality that if we had evidence, we would actually start the impeachment process and kick him out. Never mind that. Believe what we say, not what your lying eyes tell you.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough thing to argue with. If someone is on the same basis as us, right? They're just looking for truth and willing to have a discussion. I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong. When I'm wrong, I have no problems with that.
If somebody, if somebody is willing to take objectivity as the ruler or the standard to judge things, then you can have a conversation with them. You can convince them of things. That's the entire basis of logic and argument. If somebody has a subjective perspective as their highest authority, no amount of objective proof can dissuade them. That's the problem with ideologues, is no amount of reality or objectively provable things will dissuade them because they've set something other than objectiveness as their standard. They said, no, what you're saying might be the facts and evidence, but what this person told me, since I hold that in the highest regard, I hold that above objectivity, what that person told me is true regardless of what you're showing me.
So that's an odd perspective to put things in, right? So growing up, we were raised Christian. We were raised on the Bible. We were raised on the teaching of Jesus and the Old Testament, New Testament, what have you. However, were we ever told to compare that to what we perceive in the real world?
No, we were actually told, because I remember in school and things like that, there was the don't believe, if the science contradicts the Bible, don't believe the science, believe the Bible.
Correct. However, it would almost seem the opposite, to where if science proves what happened in the Bible, that is of a benefit to the Bible, shows the strength of what's in, and shows the continuity, while pushing aside misnomers, while pushing aside that which doesn't actually matter and which is just hearsay or falsehood. And I'm not saying that we were raised in a necessarily like an indoctrination camp or something that was.
There was a bit of indoctrination, and we've kind of covered that.
I understand.
But there was also
prove this in real life for everything, always, ever. Why is that not a statement? I mean, in mathematics, it is. If you go to any math class, it just is what it is. And every time you do that type of equation, that type of problem, use this formula, always the same answer, period. Comes out constant. When you get into physics and we apply those physics formulas, it comes out constant, period. When you get into biology and we learn about the basics of biology, at least our current understanding of basics of biology comes out fairly constant. Within animal genomes, within plant life, within how things reproduce, within how they get their energy, within how the body works, within how our human systems work within ourselves, it seems fairly constant. And yet, we're told there are supernatural events, or there are maybe not necessarily supernatural, but social events, right? Gender swapping, what have you, that can't be covered under what is 100% or almost 100% concrete science, and so it requires a bit of belief. The only thing I can see is that having a belief in God doesn't negate everything, but it does require you to be very astute and measure everything if you compare it to the real world. I can't just accept everything as a miracle. I have to look at it. It actually makes sense.
Yeah, and if you look at history, it was when the church began to take a stronghold and began to take over as kind of the dominant religion of societies, that people actually started to reject superstitious explanations for things and started to look for and like Ben Shapiro wrote a book about this, and there's a bunch of people who wrote a book about this, but it was the combination of Christianity and Greek philosophy that led to what we now know as Western society. And they talk about this, and it was that, but it needed that foundation of the world, the objective world exists. It's not up to the will or the whim of some deity. There are standards and rules, and the universe is consistent. When you live in a world where everything is controlled by some superstitious explanation, the world is not consistent. It could be the will of the gods that somebody gets struck down by the plague, and when you start reading the Bible and you're like, no, there are rules to the universe. The God of the Bible is an ordered God. The God of the Bible has rules that he set in place, and he says, you know what? I'm not even going to break my own rules. And you're like, okay, that means there's something reliable, and we can start to determine and predict things based on what we know today. And I think I've brought this point up, when you compare that to what the Muslims teach, where everything is the will of Allah, and if something doesn't happen, or then it wasn't the will of Allah. And you see the amount of innovation that have come out of societies that have that mindset, it's non-existent. They haven't had any innovations. They haven't had any technological breakthroughs. They've been relying on breakthroughs from the Western world, where the Western world says, no, the universe is ordered. There is a predictability. You can use that to your advantage.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
If there is no will of the people and is simply the will of a deity, then what is the point?
Yeah.
You do whatever you want, and whatever you're feeling at that moment. I can go rape someone in the next 10 minutes, and that was the will of whatever deity.
Yeah, and if you shoot an arrow and it doesn't land on your target, well, that was, the will of the wind god or something along those. And when you look at the Western, like, no, it has to do with trajectory and speed and acceleration and factors of wind, and we can calculate and get you a better approximation of where that arrow is going to land, and you can try to calculate. I mean, there's I don't know if you've taken any shooting courses where they talk about calculating your breathing, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, when you breathe in and out, you're adjusting the position of the gun, so you have to make sure that you squeeze the trigger after you exhale, because when you inhale, you might not have inhaled the same amount, so you always make sure that you wait till, and that's when you release, and that's when you try to. But if you're like, hey, where the bullet landed was just the will of the gods, you don't take anything into consideration, and you just, I'm just gonna point the thing at whatever I'm shooting at and pull the trigger and hope I hit it, and hope the will of the gods is that I hit it. It's like, that's you're like, wait a minute. So one is like, hey, there are things that we can accurately predict and account for, and then there's like, no, you just hope that the deities find favor with you.
Yep, valid points.
So
I think mostly what I'm fighting against is within these online discussions, it is those who are either extremely indoctrinated into a particular belief system, therefore they're having trouble just accepting what they see in real life, or two, they are more under this push of a support blanket or humanitarian aid versus what can you do for yourself.
Yeah,
I guess
so to deal with that,
what is that benefit? When you say what can I do for myself, when you say what is it that I can achieve, how would you equate that versus what can I get out of such and such if it's offered? What is the difference, and why would you conceive or consider one thing better than the other?
Well, here's the main problem with that sort of thing is when you're relying on other people, if they are unable to provide for you, then you don't get it. If you can provide for yourself, right? It's the teach a man to fish, right? You give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. And yet that simple adage is very profound, but that seems lost on a lot of the people pushing for socialism. It's like, oh, well, everybody else should just give me stuff. It's like, well, consider what if everybody else is not able to provide for you, and you're relying on everyone else to provide for you.
You get a fish.
Yeah, if your entire existence is based on what everybody else does, if they fail at their job, you have no choice but to also fail. When it's in your control Like, you can provide for yourself. Then if you don't have what you need, well, then maybe it's circumstances, maybe it's other people, but at least you have some degree of control on whether you fail or not. Your decisions, what you do, can change. Like, okay, everybody else failed me, everybody else didn't provide what I needed, everybody else got in the way, but as long as I have the ability on my own to do this, I can overcome all the obstacles. I can make sure that I survive this. Like, it's like if you're unable to swim and you're relying on a lifeguard to save you when the riptide pulled you out. Well, what if that lifeguard can't get to you? Well, then you drown. But if you can swim and that riptide pulls you out, and you're like, okay, this is further than I needed to go, well, there's still a fighting chance that you can get back to shore. Yeah. If you can't swim on your own and you're relying on floaties and lifeguards, good luck. Which situation would you rather have? A situation where you have the ability to swim and you can make it to shore, there's the chance of that, and you also have a lifeguard coming for you, and there's also, like, hey, that increases your chances of survival if you add your own ability to swim on top of that. If you say, I shouldn't have to be able to swim, yeah,
and you're probably the first one that's going to drown.
Yeah. If you take away your own ability to swim for yourself, that's removing the amount of chances of you surviving. And that's what people who are entirely dependent on welfare and systems, they've put themselves in a position where if that disappears, there's no chance of them making it on their own. So
that's a good point.
It lowers their chances of survival. And you want, hey, I want to maximize as much as I can my chances of survival, my chances of making it to shore.
Yep.
So hopefully that was a good analogy. It seemed appropriate.
That's a analogy. It's along the same lines of what I was thinking. It just I couldn't squeeze it together into a coherent thought, but that actually makes sense.
All right. Well, it is 9:20, and we went down a bunch of different tangents. I want to kind of bring this all back. So this is my good thing to end on, because this is what I wish would have happened a couple of weeks ago, but so it's unfortunate it didn't happen sooner, but at least it's happening now. So a couple of weeks ago, Charlie Kirk, when Donald Trump Jr. was up on stage, they shut down questions altogether to the booing of the crowd and all that sort of thing, because they didn't have a good way of responding to these Groyper guys. And this, I think, was I think he hit all of the points that he needed to combat these guys on this one.
Hey, Mr. Kirk, thanks for coming out tonight. I got a question for you real quick. Up until about 5 years ago, when gay marriage was legalized nationwide, the conservative movement has been explicitly pro-traditional family. Now, both you and your organization advocate for the acceptance of anti-Christian, immoral lifestyles like homosexuality and transsexuality, going as far to invite drag queens like Lady MAGA to your events. It seems to me and anyone who's paying attention that conservatives just believe whatever liberals believed 5 years ago. Right now, there's a push by the left to normalize pedophilia by way of child drag queen shows and... Oh, excuse me. Phone shut off.
Go back to your notes. That's probably where you saved it. You gotta like push double tap and then go over.
Right now, there is a push by the left to normalize pedophilia by way of child drag queen shows and rebranding pedophiles as minor attracted persons. 5 years from now, will you be promoting child drag queen shows? Will child abuse become part of the conservative platform?
Boy, that's a slippery slope fallacy if I've ever seen one. First of all, I've never invited a drag queen to come to any Turning Point USA event. I was at Politicon, and an individual by the name of Lady MAGA came up, and I took a picture, and she walked away. Secondly, let me ask you a question. Are you a Trump supporter?
Yes, sir.
So are you a proud Trump supporter?
Of course.
So are you sickened that he had a gay man speak at his convention?
Yes.
Then you're not a Trump supporter, my friend.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
There you go. Yeah.
Let me ask you another question. Should he return the money of Peter Thiel, an openly gay man who supports his campaign?
No, if it helps him strategically.
Okay.
Sure.
Should he stop talking to Tammy Bruce, who's an open lesbian that's a Fox News contributor?
If it's affecting his ideas, then probably, yeah.
Okay, so you say you're a Trump supporter, yet you have all these issues and these disagreements with him. Let me be very clear about my position. My personal position. I'm a Christian first and foremost. Then in America.
I'm going to pause that real fast because Michael Jones, the other guy I showed 2 weeks ago, did respond to my posts on comments on his video, and I pointed out, I was like, well, so you do realize Donald Trump has a daughter who converted to Judaism, and she married a Jew, and both of them have been working in the White House. And also, Trump moved the embassy, the U.S. embassy, to the capital of Israel. And his response was something on the lines of, oh yeah, things like that make it very difficult to support Donald Trump. And I'm like, so you're telling all these people, oh, we should criticize Israel, and then the one guy that you're saying, oh yeah, but we just support Trump, we wear his MAGA hats, and I'm like, that it makes it difficult. Oh, really? So you can criticize Turning Point USA and all that, but Trump is doing things that actively support the people that you hate, and you're saying, oh, that makes it difficult to do it. I'm like, yeah, that points out your own hypocrisy. So I just want to say, yeah, that was just my little interjection here, but I'll let the clip continue.
Yep.
Yeah, these people do not have a firm position, because as soon as you call them, I was like, wait, how can you support?
Well, that's because they're nitpicking on one or two topics.
Yeah. And it's like, well, how can you support somebody who has done way more for Israel and the Jews than anything Turning Point USA has done? And it's like, oh yeah, well that makes it difficult. But I mean, Charlie Kirk's an evil guy. He's lying to people, and like, Trump's done way more as president, and you're like, oh no, that's different though. Like, no, it's not. All right.
American, then a constitutionalist, then a conservative. In that order. I believe marriage, biblically, if we want to have a biblical and theological discussion, as articulated in the greatest book ever to exist in the history of the world, the Holy Bible. Marriage in the Holy Bible is one man, one woman. I also do not believe in the sort of rhetoric that some people engage in, that all of a sudden that they say there's no place for gay people in the conservative movement. I do not believe that. And let me ask you a question. Can I ask you a question then?
Sure, go for it.
So, the American family, liberty, freedom, the Constitution, our history, veterans, that's what we're conserving. I'll get to you later, though, don't worry. So let me ask you a question. What if you had your way, what would you do with gay people in America?
There you go.
What would I do with them?
Yeah, because they're not allowed in the conservative movement, so would you just kick them out anytime they show up at a Republican Party? If you were in charge, like, what would you say? You can't be part of the Republican Party.
If somebody is advocating for being openly homosexual, yeah, they should not be part of the conservative movement.
Yeah.
So
okay.
So I just want to go through the list. Guy Benson, no place in the conservative movement. Dave Rubin, no place in the conservative movement. Peter Thiel, no place in the conservative movement. So that, just to go down the list,
if they are supporting open homosexuality.
So I'm going to ask a very respectful question, as respectfully as I can. What does what they do in their private life concern you so much that you have to go up in front of a crowd? And
it is against God. That is
so. Let me ask you a question.
Are you a Christian or not?
Do we live in a theocracy? Yes or no?
There you go.
No, do we live in a theocracy?
You said you're a Christian.
I am a Christian. And do you know what? And guess what? I will say this. Part of being a Christian is appropriately interpreting what the theological says for the individual, but also means to be long-suffering and patient and loving and kind. Jesus Christ talked to all people. Jesus Christ went and did his ministry through Judea and Samaria, and he had dinner with tax collectors, and he had dinner with prostitutes, and he did his ministry in every part of the Mediterranean. What it means to be a Christian, my friend, is to be open-minded but firm in your beliefs, so you can have that belief. But if you say there's something inherently wrong with communicating or associating just because they make different personal decisions than you, then you, sir, are not a conservative. Thanks for being here tonight.
That's the response he should have given a month ago when all of this started. I'm glad he got there finally, but man, he hit everything. I was like, yeah, he called them out on their hypocrisy, pointed at, yeah, and what you're doing is not conservative, and what you're doing is not in line with the Bible.
I mean, that's actually an excellent message.
Yeah.
What the guy on the microphone, the one who was asking the questions, is more related to the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Those who are more rule-based stating, hey, you have not abided by this, or you have obliged this, but have disregarded this, yada, yada, yada. And that's not what Jesus stood for, and that's not what Christianity stood for at all.
Yeah.
It was to simply state, we all screw up, we are all messed up. If someone is trying to improve, that is someone you should, abide by and discuss and say, let's help each other to improve.
Right. That's that. The you know, man. Is it the healthy don't need a physician? It's the sick, or something along those lines. Man, I don't remember the exact.
Yeah,
King
I mean
James
that's what
quote.
point with the whole.
Yeah. So
whole
if
healthcare
somebody,
plan.
yeah.
Like, I've been to a doctor in 20-something years. Like, whoa, that's just you. I'm like, no, there's a lot of people, because I'm almost hitting 40, and I still don't want to see a doctor. And there's plenty of people who don't want to see a doctor. Why am I paying for people that have to see a doctor every other week? But still, it's the idea of.
Yeah, let me look up the exact. Okay.
I guess the idea of let God judge. The rest of us are just here to encourage or guide. And that still follows exactly along the lines of with Jesus' golden rules of spread the good news. Is let God judge.
Yeah.
You're just here to spread good news.
So this is Mark 2. And when the scribes and Pharisees saw him eating with publicans and sinners, they said unto his disciples, how is it that he eateth and drinketh with publicans and sinners? Then when Jesus heard it, he said to them, they that are whole have no need of a physician, but they that are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. I'm like, that's exactly what's going on right now. The groypers are the scribes, and people like Charlie Kirk are being Jesus' representatives and say, yeah, I'm not here for you. I'm here because you think you've got all the answers because you think you're healthy. Well, I'm not here to help you. There's other people who are desperate for help, who see that they are not in a good position, who want things better. Those are the people we're here to help. Those are the people. So
yeah, I guess along the same lines of, say, you're a little overweight and the doctor prescribes you some diet pills instead of saying, hey, here's some better vegetables and meats and whatever to eat. Instead of doing things naturally, hey, let's do things my way instead of the natural way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that was Mark 2:16. I don't think I gave the verse, but yeah.
Yeah, you said Mark 2:16.
Oh, okay.
I mean that is accurate. The saved are the saved. Those who believe are those who believe.
Well, it's the other thing is if those people, it's not just the people who are saved, it's people who believe they're saved. Well, if they believe they're saved, what can you do for them? If they believe they're doing everything right, what can you possibly do to fix them? It's like, well, all right, I'm going to go to the people who know that they're flawed or think that there's something that, yeah, those are the people you can help, because you can't help somebody who, you can't give somebody the answers if they know the answers. You can't convince somebody who's like, nope, this is definitely the thing. Right? That's another. It's like, yeah. So when he was talking, it was like the whole don't need a physician. If you think you're healthy, you don't go to a doctor. If you're like, hey, wait a minute, my leg is missing, you go to a doctor. That's kind of a weird example, but it's when you know something is wrong, that's when you go and seek help. These groyper people, they don't seek help because they think they know the right answers. And he's like, yeah, I'm not interested in you. You're not here, or I'm not here for you. I'm here to help anybody who wants to be an actual conservative, because you claim to be conservative and nothing you do is conservative. So I'm going to go to the people who may not be your 100% conservative. They don't fit all the check boxes. They don't fit nicely into what you think is a conservative, but they're coming towards conservatism as opposed to where they were. And yeah,
good point. You can't help those who are being obtuse and who are unable or unwilling to learn.
Mm-hmm.
All you can do is, you in and of yourself always be willing to learn.
Yeah.
If God is an all-encompassing entity, the creator of the world, the more you learn about the world around you, the more you equate yourself to this God that created everything. It cannot really be of a detriment. It's not like the more you learn and the more you understand, the worse you are. That doesn't actually make any sense.
Yeah.
It would seem the more you understand about what has been built around you, the way it works, the way the physics and the philosophy and everything works around you, the more you actually understand what was set before you. It just simply means that there are those who are going to be very stuck in their ways, who are going to be stuck in their mindset. And I would say, unfortunately, I understand what it means to be in that position. And I don't even understand what kind of broke me out. That's the one thing I'm trying to figure out is when was that transition? What happened? Can I reproduce that? Because I think that reproducing catalyst is something that can help a lot of people get out of their stagnant ways or indoctrinated ways.
Well, unfortunately, that seems to be. There doesn't seem to be a one catch moment for everybody. It seems to be individual.
Not a one size fits all.
Yeah, it seems to be something that jars an individual, and it's something specific to that individual. And I don't know if there's any way that you could have predicted what would shake their world or shake the foundation, because that's what needs to occur. The foundation is faulty. The foundation is on sand, and as long as it's still holding up while on sand, they're going to keep operating off of that faulty foundation. And it's until something comes along that shakes it and like, hey, you built this on sand, your entire structure falls over. But since everybody's structure is different, it's not going to be the same thing every time that brings it to its knees. So.
Makes sense.
All right. And on that note, I think we're going to call it a night, and hopefully we'll get back to the Communist Manifesto next week.
Yeah, there's just a lot to discuss there.
Yeah.
A lot to break down.
And I don't anticipate next week being very, newsworthy. We had 2 weeks worth of stuff, so I was trying to cram as much. And then we talked about a whole bunch of other subjects. But my main focus for next week will be the Communist Manifesto, and if any, and I will pretty much ignore any. Maybe I'll throw a clip here or two, but I'm not gonna look for things to fill time.
Yep. If nothing major pops up in the news, it's still just Trump impeachment and nothing's happened, and there's still another investigation, then none of that's noteworthy.
Yeah, I anticipate that's what's going to happen for the next probably month. They're not
probably until about 9 months before the 2020 election.
Yeah.
And then that's just going to be dropped, and everyone's going to start slitting each other's throats.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks to anybody who ends up watching this or who ended up joining this, and I will see you next Monday.
Yep.